Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks and my code HMA. Both Brendan and I are sponsored by Prize Picks, which is America's #1 sports app. The app is really easy to use. Just pick more or less, lock in your lineup, go out there and make yourself some money. Prize Picks is available in many of the states in the United States, including Texas and California. Though in Washington, you will still have to use it on a casino's network if you want to use the app in full. They've got a new user offer where if you put down $5 on a lineup, they will get you $50 in lineup when you either use my code, HMA, or simply just click the link down in the description section below. Terms and conditions do apply. Please see their site for details, and always remember to gamble responsibly. Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest stream show. You know my name is Brandon King, and you know I appreciate you tuning on in. Thanks for checking on the channel today. Popping on in here as we've got a little bit of breaking news, folks. The Seattle Seahawks, after a long process of deliberation, a very smart process of avoiding making this jump, let's say a month prior, have finally added what would be figuratively, theoretically, the final piece of necessity to the team for the 2026 NFL season, inking edge Dante Fowler to a 1-year, $5 million deal. So a contract that is, even in this day and age, for the 1-year vet flyer kind of deals, pretty good contract here. And by all accounts in this situation, I think a lot of what you're going to hear about in the driving force of this signing is going to be Dante's want to come, much like DeMarcus Lawrence, his former running mate here with the Dallas Cowboys, to come in pursuit of of a championship. And so he is coming here potentially, I would say, to take maybe just a little bit less money. I'm not saying he was going to break the bank out there on the open market, but that, a couple million more probably were going to exist if he went to a different team. And instead comes here on the $5 million deal to be the fourth edge here in the rotation for your Seattle Seahawks. So this puts you in a place, as I say, of kind of conclusion as far as roster building. Not that it does in full. They're going to make more moves down the line as far as there'll be a more big splash kind of signing. You've been kind of just getting everything into place that you need to have there, both from a starter front and then from a depth front here, utilizing both free agency and the draft to go and make sure you get that done. This sort of finishes that process as you look down the line, and you can see not only those starters, you can see not only that depth, you can see the camp bodies and the guys that'll be in the mix to be competitive with those other guys to where, there's nothing else that really needs to be extra done. And now we have an understanding that we're going to have $28 million remaining. So there's going to be a lot of very interesting discussions about what Seattle's going to do forward here with still having a lot of money, not having any holes really left that they've got to go and fill, an ability to maybe add some impact down the line here. Maybe they go back to the edge and they say, hey, we're getting an older edge here. DeMarcus Lawrence is an older edge. Uchenna getting up there a little bit. Maybe it would be even better to go even one extra, even though that's not what we've done in the past, because in the past we've had a little bit more youth to lean upon. But let's look at what we've got here with Fowler and what, he's bringing to the play. Watching his tape, I think that there's a lot here that's going to really fit really well to the Seattle Seahawks defense. He is both an athletic guy that also can work with some power elements. He's got really long arms. If he was in this past draft, he'd have one of the longer arms for edges in this class, not named Keldrick Falk. And that does show up in that he can use his power in that way, though he's not a pure power guy necessarily per se. He's a former top 5 pick. Jacksonville Jaguars took him 3rd overall many years ago. And, he's had a very solid career. I think that there was a thinking at the time when he was taken that he was going to be an even better pro than he was as a collegian, that he was a guy that was in many ways moved all around. We see this story very often. Keldrick Falk ran this very thing where these youngsters get moved all over the place on those defensive lines in college, and they're not allowed to just kind of, let me take to one spot and go. But in his case, he was always going to be probably more of a better edge, but always still had a little bit of the pull to inside. And even when you're watching the Cowboy film from last year, there's still this draw to kind of move him inside. Let him do the stand-up spinner roll where you're an edge that goes inside and then you stand up over the guard, heads up. It's kind of an interesting you do it off of blitzes and sort of simulated pressures and the like that. But there's a lot of, you can see he's got a bit of a track record going back to playing somewhat inside here and there just a little bit. And so you've got a guy that's been here since 2016. Yes, long in the tooth, came in the into the league pretty young. So still 31, going to be turning 32 years old. So not ancient by any measure. You can see here that there wasn't necessarily him capturing a little bit of that spirit of what I think you thought he was going to be when he was coming out of college, being that they thought he'd be that better pro, that you used the physical upside and how athletic he was at his size, 6'3" with those long arms and good weight, good 260 pounds on him, really solidly built. You go, man, this guy's, it's going to get even better as a pro. We can just lock him into one spot. It hasn't exactly happened, as you can see here with the sack production, topping out in 2019 with the Rams with 11 and a half sacks, maybe making as much an argument you could at that time that as you look through his career, Jacksonville, Rams, Atlanta, Dallas, Washington, a guy that has not had necessarily the grade A opportunity to go out there and feast amongst a great core around him, or on a team that's playing from ahead a lot. And let's face it, when it comes to pass rushing success, this is something that doesn't get talked, I think, a lot about, but these guys and what they do need to have the opportunities. And if you're a team that is playing from behind or can't stop the run, even if that's absent him or including him, well, now you're not really getting to his good stuff at that point. And so when he did have that opportunity, he was very productive. You can see there he had 58 total tackles in addition to the 11 and a half sacks. So really, really good production there with the Rams, though. They were like, we're good even after that year. Now they were in a place, remember 19, we're starting to have to kind of play the contractual game, Goff's contract hits and they're trying to figure all their other stuff around. So you're going to have to let guys go at that time. We got bit by the same thing. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's like something bad about him and the Rams caught on to, and they're like, yeah, let's pivot. Let's pivot this fast. So he's moved on from the Rams, has not been as productive since leaving there. 3 sacks, 4.5 sacks, 6 sacks, 4 sacks. This is by the year. Got back to 10.5 sacks with Washington just 2 years ago. And then last year with Dallas, kind of a quiet year, even though he played all 17 games, only 3 sacks in that rotational role. The Cowboys did have some decent edge group kind of set up. Sam Williams was there. Ezaraku was having a really good rookie year until he went down to an injury. And then you had Clowney come in there as well. So it was a fairly deep group, even though it wasn't necessarily a particularly good defense or a good team in that regard of things. He is a guy that had a little bit of a dip here last year, and you're not going to get the prime guy here, but you're not necessarily paying for the prime Dante Fowler experience. When you do look at him from a PFF angle of things here, first up, let's take a look at what he's got to kind of come in and take over for theoretically here. Theoretically here on the surface of things. So this is Boye Mafe from last his whole career here, but last year you could see he compiled 559 total pass rush snaps. It's going to be down here in the bottom left corner if you're looking here. He had only 178 run defense and 340 pass rush reps. So when we think about Boye Mafe last year, we go, okay, you really set him up in a situation where he was really just being asked to mainly rush the passer, almost not quite, maybe a 2-to-1, but getting close-ish to 2-to-1 on his pass rush reps versus run reps. And so that does show you that you had him kind of in a very specific kind of role here within the defense and what you're asking him to do. You see with Mafe, you had the 40 total pressures, the 2 sacks, the 2 hits, the 36 hurries. I do like that we have a couple different stats with pass rushers to go off of. I know PFF might be going kind of away here with this, but this is where it's nice to have a couple different metrics than just the pure sack stuff to kind of look upon. I do say, as you guys know, listening to me, that I'm not a big fan always of the pressure numbers because it gets to be a little bit of one where what gets counted, what doesn't get counted. There's a lot of room for, I think, some variance, let's call it that. So this is what he's replacing here is Fowler in the defense, is what you need to kind of, that's why I say you're kind of rounding out the spots of what you need on this defense as a whole. And when you look at last year with Fowler, he actually ended up playing less snaps than Mafe, was up over 600. He was at 358. But you can see that with Dallas last year here in 2025, there's a similar situation going on as far as the run defense to pass rush reps, and that the team's going, nope, we're going to put you into this role when we have you out there on the field and let you go in this manner. Now, I don't think that he's necessarily a bad run defender. And, when you look through his career, I think that you can see some spottiness when it comes to him as a tackler. You can see some spottiness a little bit when it comes to him as a run defender, and that it goes a little bit up and down, but he's always right around like league average-ish when it comes to being his run defense. And this is where, Mafe kind of was last year as well as far as that goes. So it's passable. It's maybe not going to be a dominant form, but it's going to be also not a pure weakness when he's on the field. Let's not forget 6'3" with the 34-inch long arms and more powerish, let's say, than he is more snatch the edge. You got to kind of push the guy into one of the columns or other. It's more into the power edge of things and how he's going to operate. So he had an okay year there. We can see that the pressure numbers are down for Mafe. Mafe was at 40. He's at 30. Has more sacks than Mafe's. Has more hits and hurries, I believe, than what Mafe was credited for. But we got to remember with Mafe that he was up over 600 snaps. So from a standpoint of Mafe on a pure volume of, if we just want to take pressures, which again, I don't know if it's the best pure just stat to use as a relevant point here. Yeah, you might add 10 more pressures, but it took you the 300 more snaps, almost double the more reps there to go and get those. Go get those. And you're doing it on a team that was playing from ahead in Mafe's case. You were being able to anticipate pass a lot more than Fowler would have been able to do with the Dallas Cowboys last year. So this does replace that production. This is the fourth edge in the group. This is not a guy that's going to have to eat up a lot of snaps. He's not as old as some of the other edges I think you were worried about here as far as in free agency that were available. I mean, I love Clowney, but that's a couple of years more older. Cameron Jordan, really like him, but that's a couple of years old. Von Miller, very old. These guys aren't just early 30s now. They're getting into that place where, no, we don't have as much of a track record of guys in their mid-30s still going out there and getting it done, even as the fourth edge. And so you maybe wanted to kind of drift a little bit more into a place where you're a little bit more youthful. The cost is certainly not going to prevent you from even adding another one at this point. You didn't have to break the bank for it. You know what you're going to get in this guy. He fits to the defense as well, as we're going to look a little bit at his tape here in a second. But it's just a snapshot in what you're kind of getting here from him as a player. You got a little bit of speed rusher. I think there's some there is some speed to power stuff, especially with him. Again, we know this fits with the Macdonald defense, and I'm really excited about him playing what I would call the wide 10 technique. And that's where typical 3-4 defense has the guys out fairly wide. You go to Mike's almost created this extra thing where he'll even widen them out more. Some teams are also doing this in the league. Dallas had him more into kind of that 7-9 alignment, where he was in more of a typical place. But every once in a while, they would allow him to go a little bit further on the edge on the tape, where they would get him out there to where Mike will have him. And that really gave him the opportunity to get in there and get after it as far as, really locking him with the power. He also uniquely really does have a nice inside move in his ability. It's not even really like a cross-face counter. It's more of just he can feel the tackle leaning to the outside shoulder and then round it back inside. He just has kind of, he's a real feel rusher. He's not, he's going to work off contact, but he's also going to be able to feel it really good in the moment and sense where he can just kind of find a crack to kind of get through and make it happen. So he does have a little bit of those both elements to it. And you like that coming off that edge a little bit wider when it can go inside, because that tackle is going to be loading up for that power. And the second he senses that power is being too much loaded up for, he can just cut it up inside there. And that's why I think it's going to be well suited for him to this defense in particular, coming to the scheme for how he plays. As you can see there with his PFF grades from last year, everything was, as I say, 64 is about the league average on a grading system. If you want to look pass rush, tackling, whatever, overall grade, it's about the average. So you can see that in an overall, sense, 77.6 in a rotational role, he still had a very solid season. And yeah, I'm not expecting this guy to tear the roof off, but he was by no measure, even though it was not a double-digit year from sack-wise, and it was on a bad team and on a bad defense, it's not necessarily representatory of the fact that he doesn't have something here left in the tank that he can give and provide to the team, especially if you get this guy in a place where he's going to be really hungry. We got a little bit of tape I want to show you here of him, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea of what you're going to be looking at here with him, because it is interesting. He is going to be, there is a lot of hustle here to the stuff. There is a lot of maybe I'm going to need a little bit of the coverage sack stuff to get me to where I need to go. Not necessarily again a bad thing, because this can fit to the Seahawks defense and what they want to do. So it's, we saw last year, Seahawks were one of the league leaders in generating pressure. Did they do so because of the fact that they got fast pressure? No. Would they probably like to get some fast pressure and get more guys that could do that type of stuff? Certainly. But is it a necessary requirement? Does it prevent them from being the best defense in the NFL at that point? No, I don't think so. All right. So we're going to look at a couple reps here from Fowler. I'm going to shrink my big ass head down here a little bit so you guys can see properly. You guys can see what the hell's going on. And this is going to be from Washington. And my reason for choosing Washington is that last year on his 3 sacks, a large part of it was he had a couple, I think, unblocked. One was just kind of coverage sack he fell into. There wasn't bad production as far as pressure goes, but this is to show you guys him getting home a little bit more. And the stuff that he was getting pressure on last year is how he won on these reps. And that you saw, I felt like a multitude of ways in the 10.5 sack season he had here with the Commanders 2 years ago. You saw him winning in a couple of different ways that led me to believe here that, you can take advantage of this in this defense. It fits this defense and it's going to be productive. And let's also remember, Commanders last year, 10.5 sacks. The Rams in 2019, his 2 most productive years as a pro by far. And what were those 2 years, what stood out in those 2 years when you looked at it? He was on winning teams. He was in that position I just talked about to be able to actually rush the passer and get after it. Not merely, we're probably going to get run on all game long because we just don't have a good defense here, and I'm going to have to pick my moments and spots where maybe I can generate that pass rush. So I also want to show these because I thought that they gave it a little bit more of a representation of what he's going to get to walk into here, being that was a good Washington team that year. That team, they went to the conference championship, very close to getting to the Super Bowl. And so he was a pass rushing force, within that. So you're going to see him here running a little bit of a game to the left-hand side of your screen. And I told you that the inside stuff is a part of what he does, and that he's got the track record going to college of having played inside. And so here they've got him lined up pure 3-tech here. A little bit, maybe a little more wider than a 3-tech, maybe more like a 4-eye, right? Because he's kind of the inside shoulder of the tackle. So it goes 3-tech to outside that shoulder, but you get that inside shoulder of the tackle, you're in more of kind of a 4-eye, but they just spread everything out. This is like Macdonald will do this style of stuff too. Just spread that defensive line out as wide as I possibly can get it. And then you can see he inside is a problem. This is Joel Bitonio he's up against there. And like I said, they're running a little bit of a loop game here where the left tackle just doesn't pick it up. It's probably why he's going to be moved to guard. But nice little loop there. And he can run games, by the way. Another factor or something to bring in a play here and think about is Aiden Dirty, familiarity with this guy. And what Aiden Dirty did with the Cowboys and Quinn did with the Cowboys there a couple of years ago was a heavy use of the stunts and the twists and the loop. So another part where what you're getting here with Dirty, he's going to be worked last year, right, with DeMarcus Lawrence, an aging edge Dirty had worked with. No Mike. He's got left in the tank. No Mike. He's got more to supply. Sure enough, he did. I think you probably got something similar going on here from Dirty on this one. He's going to be to the right-hand side of your screen here is going to be Fowler. Rushing off that right side, going up against the rookie here, I think Rosengarten. Showing the rookie a hard time here with a little push-pull move here. Push, pull it down, rip through. So power, like I said, there are elements of that. Is there a little bit some speedness to it? There's some quickness and explosion here to him. It's a little bit like that Clowney-like thing where it's less about working off the edge and more of speed to power. Like I'm just into your chest, I've got the length, and I'm hitting you with that combination of once I get up to speed, your power force is just increased, and you're that much harder to deal with. But you can see this is a good vet move. He's picked up some things over time. He did not have that move when he was coming out of college. That's something that you've developed as a guy that's been in the league for 10 years, and one of the benefits of getting a more of a vet pass rusher is you're getting the guys that actually have, really developed it rather than having to wait for that development. Like we've had to with a couple of the younger edges that we've had come through here in recent times, right? We've had a couple guys who've come through where you're like, okay, next year will be the year he really takes off. Darrell Taylor next year, Rasheem Green, I'm telling you next year. Boye Mafe, no, Derek Hall this next year, I'm telling you. So it is kind of nice to just know what you're getting, especially when you're not having to pay high price to get it. This is a effort. These are the kind of, sacks, a little combination of two things. It's the effort and the loop game. So again, he's with Quinn here with the Commanders, coming over from originally the Cowboys, where Quinn had been before he was hired by the Commanders. Quinn runs a lot of the stunts and loops with the Cowboys at that time, in part to kind of take advantage of Micah Parsons, where you're going to put the double teams to Micah's side. Micah now suddenly is looping inside. Your double teams are sitting out there like two islands with nowhere to go, no one to block, and you're able to now get a numbers game that you've kind of manufactured through the inside. So Quinn's kind of continued to do it a little bit with the Commanders, maybe not to the same kind of degree, but he's got a very good ability doing it. This isn't even maybe a setup loop here. I don't even know if it's really just set up or it just turns into a car crash. I spoke to earlier the fact that he can sometimes just find a little bit of a crack of daylight and then just sort of worm his way through. It's not necessarily pretty, but he is kind of athletic, and then he's got a little bit of that size to him where he can kind of pinball off things. So it's not as, doesn't hold him back as much in that way. And it's not going to be pretty, but that's, again, we kind of have this pass rush set up how we're designed, where it's sort of made to be a little bit not pretty. It's like it works off power and crushing pockets. It's not trying to sprint around edges and get you there. And so it does kind of fit in. I can see why they would go to this and go, this is something that, we're going to have a use for. Here we got him against Daniel Jones and the Giants, and forces a fumble here. He's going to be to the right-hand side of your screen. He's got a little bit of that Euro step, double-handed swipe move. You see Nick Bosa do this quite a bit, right? A little jump step inside, then you pop back outside, swipe the hands at the same time. So inside, bounce outside with the hand swipe. It's a very tough move. If anybody's tried to ever do the Euro step on a basketball court and it doesn't come naturally to you, it's hard. I try to do it and I cannot figure. It always looks wonky for me. Doesn't help that I've got a vert of about 7 inches, but that's another conversation. So a little Euro step slash, you get this on the tape from him last year with the Cowboys too. That's why I like some of these reps is there's a little bit of variance. The stunt loops, he wins that way. High effort, high motor plays, wins that way. Gets you with a little bit of the Euro step swipe move, wins that way. So he's got a little bit in his bag. I wouldn't call him this guy that's, a Michael Bennett, like he's got 3 stacks, like the expert fisherman that opens up his tackle box and it's like 4 different levels come out. It ain't that, but he's got at least the one level that comes out, the one that you can just kind of pull out and set to the side and the rest of your stuff's in the bottom. It's a little bit like that. So this is a nice little move here. And you can see that there is enough quickness and kind of bendishness to him there. I wouldn't say he's bendy, wouldn't say he's dippy, but there's enough of that there, just enough that he is gonna force you to have to be on your toes to it. You can't just load up for his power. You can't just root down and be like, yeah, you're a one-trick pony. You only got one thing you can go to, and I know it. So again, just effort here, motor. First rush doesn't move, just gets stonewalled. Quickly jabs inside. He always knows he can go inside at any time, and his quickness and athleticism will help him with that. So it's where it can look a little ugly. It's a sack's a sack, though, on the stat column and how it's counted when it's all said and done. So to the right side of your screen, stonewalled 6, bounces back inside really quickly on top of Daniel Jones. These are the kind of sacks you'll get a little bit with them. Unconventional. But again, how long is the sack take to really be had? Back foot, little pressure, step up, gotcha. So this isn't like this is some supremely long coverage sack that took place that he had an hour and a half to finally get to the quarterback. No. He got there relatively quickly and did so really off field, if you see that, because that's not a setup loop or stunt or anything like that. Poor Russ. Fowler got Russ. Another feel one. It's a stunt the whole way here, but you can see it's also not really a stunt because he's not just going past one guy, he's going past 2 guys. So it is more kind of just a loop But it's almost like, watch how he on the left side of your screen here with Fowler on the offensive line. Watch how he's sort of scraping down the whole line of scrimmage, just waiting for that crack of daylight to develop. It's kind of interesting. Oh, here, I can get through that. And you give him a little bit of freedom with it. So again, I think where I can see the fit to the Hawks defense, where they've got so many smarter, elder defensive linemen, Jaron Reed, Leonard Williams, and Uchenna Nwosu, and DeMarcus Lawrence. You got all these guys that are just so very capable of running these kind of what I call maybe kind of complex games. Because you ask a defensive end, I'm going to have you scrape down the line and then just kind of just scrape till you find and probe and find the weakness, and then get upfield through that. Unconventional as Fowler a little bit with this, but it isn't that he doesn't have talent or some physical tools that are that are exciting, quite frankly. Interesting little loop there. Call that the double loop, the loop-de-loop. The loop-de-loop. Oh, don't do Russ dirty again, man. Don't do Russ dirty again. My man's about to retire. Come on. None of this is on Russ, by the way. Offensive line is collapsing like a wet paper towel. Like a wet paper towel. So again, effort, find your crack of daylight. Just kind of get into the pile, feel where the quarterback's at. You really look how he's engaged, and his eyes are just on Russ the whole way here. So he's going to, again, a little bit from a 3 tech. We'll call it the 4-eye. He's going to be coming off the ball, not off the edge here. That's going to be the linebacker Luvu off the right edge, but just to the left of Luvu. 77 is the right tackle. That's where you're going to find Fowler, and he's going to get caught in a little bit of the massive pile of red bodies there, but able at all times to continue his progress towards the quarterback, to be able to be in his engagement with the blocker, yet still continue to make way towards the quarterback. Like, kind of like I'm so like long, strong that I can just kind of have this one arm on you, control you, just kind of go find where the quarterback's at. These are the kind of like DeMarcus Lawrence kind of reps you'd get last year at times from him with it. Or if I can't win, sometimes I can just control you and then you're gone and I'm going to go get the QB. Nothing pretty here, but also this isn't happening by accident. But also this is his commiserate skill and ability kind of working together here on these reps. And you're getting some variance on some of it as well. But he can win dirty. He can win in a porta potty. Last one here. Again, last year's sacks just didn't really show as much because there were a couple freebies in there. You do not want to leave him unblocked. I will tell you that. Leaving him unblocked is a mistake. Okay, so on this one, he's in the far right-hand side of the screen. We're going to get another, more of a pure twist here. Yeah, really more of a two-man game there. It's a little stunt twisty a little bit. But just look at the bounce. Watch the bounce. Bounce. That lateral hop at 260 pounds. See how it catches 65? Like, he cannot get back there. That's what makes him a devastating loop twister. Is that a man that big shouldn't quite be able to bounce like that with that kind of lateral explosion. And you see he gets held and still causes the forced strip sack fumble here. Pretty impressive. Really fantastic job, though, here. Look where he's at here from a guard standpoint when he puts that foot in the dirt there where he's going to do that drop move. Like, look where that left guard is at and how far he's going to get past, cross his face all the way around to where he has him just in scramble mode to try to get back into the play. And a little just brilliant double hop here. He puts a little extra. I like this rep a lot. Just that little hop. Little secondary hop after he plants. But he sells it. Sells it to the outside. And then just with some force comes back around. Great rep. Great rep. So going to win. Fits the defense. Can win with power. Can win off the stunt loop games, which will work wonderfully in this locker room, no doubt about that. He is a guy that still is youthful enough to where this isn't a guy that's lost all of the talent or lost the 2 steps that made him once a former top 5 pick. There's something to that, I think, as well. And now Seattle can still, on top of this, because of the price they're paying at $5 million, go out there and do something else. So this doesn't prevent them from necessarily adding a 5th if they want to. If they're a little bit worried about the age of the edge group, this has always been what I thought would be the smartest approach John could take on this for this very reason, for the price you're seeing today. Because if you add a Fowler today and then you add a Van Noy, or you add a Cameron Jordan, or you find just some vet that's along the same lines of this, and now you're putting these 5 together, you start to look at that and you go, oh, okay. Yeah, I can manage all these guys' snaps in the right way at that point. I can keep them all fresh. Nobody's going to have to do too much. Somebody's going to probably be injured at some point. So, I mean, we're most of the time probably always just going to have 4 rolling active anyway. I don't think it's the worst of ways to go versus going for what would have been the youngster in this draft who would not have been ready to give you much production. Probably neither this year or next year. Very minimal amount, I guess I would say at the probably the best. So better way to go here, especially for a team that's trying to contend next year, for understanding that everything you add to the team, the thing that I've been hammering the Rams about in their offseason approach this year, and that is a team when you're this close, when the competition's this close and this ferocious and this fierce, got to do every little thing you can, every percentage point you can go grab to put yourself over the top of that competition, because they are that good, because they are that type of threat. You can't just say, we think we've gone up good enough. You got to keep pushing it just as far past as you can. Because as we saw in the conference championship, as we saw in this division last year, it all sometimes can come down to that close of a margin between you. And the Seattle Seahawks are doing what they can here, in my opinion, to really top the deck off. And now you're sitting on what should be, after this deal, about $28 million. So you got $28 million you're sitting on here as we're going to sit. Got to get a Devin Witherspoon extension done. Maybe get a couple other extensions that you want to get done here after, the season that you want to use that money in allotted for. I think that's where there's going to be some very interesting discussion about, okay, roster's kind of set. You got literally everything in place now, but then yet you still have all this money. But then yet you still have the least amount of dead money in the entire National Football League, meaning you have the most amount of levers and buttons you can contractually pull to create even more space if you wanted to. So what do you do now? Do you just remain conservative? Do you say, well, look, we just did it more efficiently. Let's utilize that by saving up the money and just sitting on it and just let's play it out and see how it rolls? Or do you say, no, let's take this to the ultimate. Let's go find the impact guy now. It's going to be an interesting, I think John's in one way solved one sort of, not necessarily, it wasn't a problem as much finding this edge. There were options. You had money. But in many ways, there was just so many options, and you had always the thought process of the proverbial, okay, this guy's not available now, but could become available by the deadline, and is that a better option than the guy that I'm going for right now? And do I have to pick one? Do I have to pick one to the other? It's all those things that kind of come into play on making this sort of decision. But now he's taking care of this, and now with his first world problems, he's got to decide what he's going to do with all of this extra cap space he's got when his roster is filled out, ready to go, and very much ready to potentially repeat once again. No real major holes here, and a team that's looking very, very strong for 2026. You guys, if you can, for me, please hit that like button. I would really, really, really appreciate it. We'll bang over to you guys in the chat, of course. Do want to just give a quick shout out here, of course, to the sponsor of the show. You guys know the name. It's Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the number one sports app in the game. You got basketball playoffs in full swing right now. You could put it together over unders. You want to do some fantasy baseball. Mariners are about to cook up. It feels like they're starting to get warmer. Second place. We're coming up along. Yeah, they always start slow. It's that cold weather of the spring. Happens to us all. It takes us a while to get used to the sun, to get the defrost, de-thaw a little bit. They're ready to go now, though, to take advantage today. Utilize some picks here with them and use my code HMA. And when you do use HMA on a $5 ticket, $5 lineup there, they'll give you $50 in lineups. Not bad there. So $5.50 back when you use my code and you show some love to the channel at the same point in time. Right now, I do have this current pick here for the upcoming season. Jackson over 1,324 yards, and Jacoby Myers with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he's going to be their number one receiver option next year. Lawrence really likes him, really trusts him. So those are going to be my picks for the upcoming season. On the seasonal picks, you can get into even the weekly picks at this point as well. on the NFL season next year. Terms and conditions do apply. Please see their site for details. And in the state of Washington, there are some limitations, but if you use the app in a casino, you can use it in full. Just got to be on their network. That's the key. All right, let's see where you guys are at. Appreciate you all watching today. Again, please do hit that like button if you get a chance for me today. Helps out the channel tremendously. And maybe if you get an opportunity to sub on up. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free and helps the channel out tremendously. The Snail, thank you for the $2 donation. Bring Bobby back to play edge and break the tackle record. Well, Bobby's eventually at some point going to sign the one-day contract. I don't know if you'd bring him back here into the defense at this point, but you know what? You never know. I think they're probably going to roll with what they got. But say this with Bobby, if willingness to play, there's going to be probably a place somewhere where inside linebacker is going to go down somewhere and somebody can go and grab him and bring him in there to, eat up tackles in the run game and be hard to block. And so maybe still finds a landing spot nonetheless with this kind of situation there. But eventually here he'll be at least on a one-day contract. I wonder if Bobby could play a little. I'd like to see Bobby off the edge a little bit, Snail. That'd be interesting to see. Baker Elpries, thank you for the $2 donation. Brando, do you have an OG Griffey jersey? Griffey Jr. jersey? I don't. He is my favorite baseball player of all time. That's for sure. But I do have a million of his rookie cards. Unfortunately I don't have the actual Upper Deck one. I don't have the Holy Grail one, but I do have all the other ones, Donruss's and all the other ones around there. So Tops and I got all those, but I probably need to get one. I probably could stand to go to a vintage Griffey jersey. That'd be a good look here for the stream. But I love Griffey. It was a real pleasure getting a chance to have both Largent and Griffey. And then you got your sort of your Peyton and Kemps into the 90s where you really got some fun brand of sports to get to watch with those different sports and those guys especially. But Griffey was just a treat, man. He was a prettiest swing all time in baseball history, in my opinion. Nobody had a better stroke than Junior. Thank you, though, Baker. It's good to see you in the house, man. You too, Snail. Kyle from South Park. Thank you for the $10 donation. Very kind of you, man. Arizona with the number one hardest schedule in 2026. I don't see them winning 4 games. A running back at number 3 already looks bad. Mike will somehow say Seattle will be 9-8 or worse like he did last year, and he was way off. Yeah, it was an interesting discussion on the roundtable last week. We'll see if it doubles back down. I'm guessing probably not. We're going to probably jump into some other topics here on the next show. But, it is really a fun discussion to me because it's really, I think, one that's at the heart of every NFL organization right now, Kyle, in trying to determine running back value. Where's running back value market opportunity? How much does the running back and his talent drive the success? How much are the analytic people right? And it becomes even more important a question than it would have been even 5 years ago because of the fact that the game has slowly, bit by bit, it just slowly kind of moves into this more of a running game. The passing attempts pull back a little bit. Pass rushers and their impact, we mentioned a couple days ago, we had 28 pass rushers with 10 sacks or more last year. That's the lowest since 2017. The lowest since they've added a 17th game to the schedule. 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 13 personnel, 3 tight ends, I formations, fullbacks, the return. All this stuff leading to more of running the ball. So now, do running backs matter now more? Like more than they did a couple of years ago, where they were starting to become diminished, where the position was becoming devalued. Well, now shouldn't it increase in value? Well, now do we have teams who take that and take it too far? To your point, I would say the Arizona Cardinals have here. I think that this is a decision that was one that, number one, on the Cardinals standpoint, had a complete and a supreme lack of vision involved. You did not walk into this offseason. You did not walk into your process having already evaluated very heavily Jeremiah Love and said that this is going to be the best pick for us at pick number 3. you wouldn't have signed Tyler Algiers. I mean, it almost did that in itself just is one of the shining example of like why you wouldn't have done it. Not that it's a big contract, but you restructured Connor and you're bringing back Benson. It just doesn't make any sense to put that much draft capital and financial resources into the position because he's going to cost a buttload as a third overall pick. So it wasn't about having a vision. You wanted to move back the whole time and thought you could probably find a buyer and you couldn't. You really wanted to try to find your way back to Simpson and moving back, but you probably held a hardline stance on your trade negotiations with people tried to trade up and were probably asking for too much, not taking into account this is a weak drafting year. You're going to have to take less. You're going to have to take less. You're going to understand that the Giants, when they give that number 10 for Dexter Lawrence, go, okay, we understand this isn't the typical 10 that we're giving out. The values is a little skewed this year because of it. But then the utilization of him as well, how much you're going to get out of him, how much you're paying for him. And you're right. I didn't know they had the number one hardest schedule in the NFL. But of course, big part of it being that you play in this division drives a lot of that schedule. But it's also that we're going to have the commonality of the divisions, right? So they've got to play the AFC West and the NFC East. So Eagles, Lions, Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs, Cowboys. You got the Jets, Commanders are on there. I mean, there's legit right now as it stands, and you look at it, there's two wins on the schedule as you look at it right now. All right, sneeze there. Yeah, I think that you're on it here with this, Kyle. You know, they're going to be playing from behind in so many games next year. He's not going to get a lot of opportunities. Cardinals fans will tell me that, well, that just means they'll just throw him the ball more and pass. Well, we'll see if that works. You know, we'll see if that works. And then, you know, even after you use him in the first year or two where you're just hyper trying to throw him touches to validate now, because there's a bit of now you got to validate the pick, don't you? Pick a guy number 3 overall, you can't forget to use him. You can't not get him his touches every week, no matter what. So now you start manufacturing an offense not around how you attack defenses, but instead upon how you get the most out of this particular player. And it starts to drive that, and that makes you predictable. And that makes defenses easier to be able to then take that player and what he does well away to a degree. There's just a lot of this that just becomes like domino to me with the Jeremiah Love thing. It isn't about really, I think people sometimes get caught up on like the evaluation of Love within this and be like, you just don't like Love. So you just don't think Love's not the best player in this entire draft. Like, well, we're kind of like overstating this a little bit at this point. And if we're taking in positional valuation to this, then no, he's not. And you do take into a positional valuation in drafting players. You don't just say best player. This is the best player, which I think still is arguable. I don't think it's just no brainer that he is. You know, I mean, you can make the argument that Caleb Downs is the best player in this draft. You can make the argument that a lot of teams in this thing agree that he was purely just the best player, but falls all the way to the Cowboys midway through, doesn't he? Because he plays the safety position, and positional valuation factors into drafting guys and where you don't go draft them. But this domino thing that'll go down here from the Cardinals is this is what happens with an organization that's not running with intelligence. This is an organization that's letting things like, well, he's going to put butts into seats factor into their decision. Because now what happens is the domino effect is you make a bad choice, and then sunk cost fallacy. Now you start making other choices and other decisions to try to validate this choice. And all this ends up having not a lot to do with actually going out and what's the best and the proper way for us to go out and try to win football games. Put together the best, strongest roster. So I think, you are seeing it right, man. I see it similarly on this. I'm going to be a bit of a hardliner like you are on this and saying, look, I'm going to be very strongly anti on the Cardinals and what they're doing right now. I thought that they got through some of this offseason where they started the process, but then couldn't help themselves because you cut yourself clean from Kyler Murray's deal. You didn't post June 1st him. You had all the dead money right on the front side, as they should have. Then you're restructuring Connor, which I probably wouldn't have done. But then you save a lot of the money and you right now have a lot of cap space. So it looks like you're going to probably roll a lot of cap space into next year to where you can better maximize it. Like, you like that. But then you go into this draft and running back and then Carson Beck in the third round and as the first pick in the third round. I just shake my head at it and I go, this is why you guys are stuck where you're stuck. And you're never going to get yourself out of it until you start thinking about what's the smartest choice. And let's start just building the best possible roster. Let's not get caught up on butts and seats or this guy's got to be the best guy in the draft, but we're going to throw positional value out the door because then we can get it. I don't know. The more I've thought about it with the Love pick, the less I've liked the pick, I guess is what I'm saying. Going a long way around to saying it. GB, thank you for the $10 donation, GB. It's good to see you in the house, man. Thank you for that. It didn't have any note on your dono, but very kind of you. Very kind of you, GB. Appreciate you for that. Sandman, 626, thank you for the $5 donation. When do you think Seattle goes younger on edge? Or do you think some guys on the roster are a part of the future plans? Hashtag Go Hawks. It's an interesting question because you do start to think a little bit about, I think that where I would kind of take this a little bit and wondering is that next year may be a little bit of a draft where John, if he does have the full allotment of his draft capital, like the 11th picks he's currently sitting on, maybe it is a draft that he does look to move up in just a little bit, especially maybe potentially even in the first round, because I think that as you look for the younger edge, the problem you run into that you have to be aware of with this edge group, it's like running back. You got to think about the lessons you've learned as an organization and learned in the NFL as you've looked around. And the thing that stands out in the NFL is when I take an edge rusher in the second round, I don't get immediate impact. I went back and did research on this, and edge rushers taken in the second round for a 10-year period. The most sacks they had in the rookie year was 4. That was the best of the best. That was the cream of the crop. It doesn't get better than this production right here over a 10-year period for edges drafted in the second round, which tells you that edges are probably getting a little overdrafted, not leaving as much talent into that second round period, even though there's still teams taking those guys there. And then that does tell you at that point that, okay, not only do I not get that first year production, but it's not like the guy that went for 2 sacks in his rookie years coming back and probably giving me 12. You could probably find a few more examples of that in there, but it is more of a rarity still. So we come back around to history tells us if we take a guy in the second round, if we're picking late in the first round, trying to take him in the second round, you're probably getting a guy that's not coming on to a Super Bowl ready team, able to give a lot of production, at least as a pass rusher. Maybe they can give you and supply you something as a run defender. But that's less than having an answer on this one. It would be more about, I think that's the quandary that John Schneider's kind of trying to mull over here a little bit with this one. I know my track record with edges. I've had this very same thing that I talk about that I've walked into. Darrell Taylor, Rasheem Green, LJ Collier, Derek Hall, Boye Mafe. And Derek Hall's getting better, and Derek Hall might finally take that final step here in his 4th year as a pro, which is great if he does, but at the same point in time, another representation of the slow bake. You got to put that thing in the oven for 350, not 550. And so that does take you around to go, and that does, if I'm John, kind of inform me. I think about the track record, the history of it, NFL, our history, what I need to supply to this team. I keep coming back around to that. Yeah, you would like to add some young edge rushers where you can, where it's appropriate to do so. But I think you also would say, I don't want to force it either. If I'm in a bad draft like this last one for edges or not as exciting ones, or these guys do fit more to that form of they're going to take a little bit of time to get to what they're going to give, then maybe I'm better to try to manufacture this. Kind of like they have right now here with this roster as you think about these edges as we currently sit, because Derek Hall is really the only drafted one in the second round, and then you signed DeMarcus Lawrence, and then Uchenna Nwosu is a former free agent signing, and now you're adding in Dante Fowler. So I think that John is kind of, by his approach of what we're seeing from him, taking just the road that I'm advocating for, being that what is the better market opportunity? What is the better market opportunity that's also going to potentially give me increased production? Because it's a double dip here. Fowler versus Zion Young next year. Fowler far outperforms Zion Young. Zion Young would have cost you that first round pick essentially to grab him. You know? Right? So you go, that's to me where you go, oh yeah, I can use that draft capital for something that have more immediate impact, Jadarian Price. Then I can go get a guy that's going to give me more impact off the edge, and it's going to be kind of collectively cheaper to do so. So it's one I don't have a sure answer for. I do think you're going to target an edge next year because DeMarcus Lawrence is probably retiring after this year. This is probably going to be Uchenna Nwosu's last season. Derek Hall is going to be a free agent after this year. So I think you are looking at the draft being one where they will at least address and having a development guy in there. You're going to have at least one guy, but it might just be one guy. It might be 1-3, one development guy, 3 long in the tooth, gray beards. They're no longer Dante the gray. They're Dante the white. Lord of the Rings reference, They've come back after their fight with the monster now, and they've got the cool white robe and the super spiffy staff. Something like that. That's what I would do if I was in John's shoes at this point. I'm not opposed to that. It's that, Sandman, or it's that, or it's, to me, maybe be open to the thought process for John of trading up for that edge in the draft. That might be an exciting edge that you have to go up and go get. And you go, let's go get a difference maker and get him on a rookie contract. And I know he's going to be a dynamite. There's some good edges already, Dylan Stewart types or whatever, target one of those kinds in the draft and let it roll, baby. All right, let's see what you guys are at. Thank you for the donation, Sandman, GB, Kyle, Banker, Snail. You are awesome. Let's see where people are at. Appreciate y'all watching today. Abdi says, Brandon, apparently we are not done getting another vet edge, experience edge. We're going for one more or a trade for one more. Apparently it's Cam Jordan, or we will trade for one. If it's not Cam Jordan, who do you think we trade for? Whew. Wow, that's some cool information, Abdi. I hope it's true, man. I do hope it's true. I mean, I was struggling the other day because I was, for the prep for the last show that we did, I was really trying to really shake the tree as far as going through over the cap, looking through the depth chart around the league, what's available out here, where's kind of and trying to take stock of the position in the offseason, and looking at like, what did the position do this last year? Where was the production at? It's kind of like locking and looking at some of that sack production. And there's like Myles Garrett kind of, I think, skews things a little bit because he sort of sets the sack record, but at the same point in time, the next guy beneath him has like 7.5 sacks less than he got, which, goes to show you how impressive that is of what Garrett got done to get it done, but also goes to show you, that we're not living in a time with like a bevy of pass rushers on every team. It's like, it's kind of spotty right now. So when I went back and looked at like trade partners or trade possibilities, I was really kind of thrown off by the lack of what there was out there, to be honest with you, Abdi. And I didn't have one that stood out to me as a real viable option as far as the trade partners go. I mean, there's obviously the Crosby one, but this would be, if you were signing Fowler, you're probably doing something, unless there's a cut with like Uchenna or something coming on the other side of it, or a trade with Uchenna. You're probably bringing on more of, just like you said, the Cam Jordan kind of guy would make some sense, because you're just like, well, look, we've got guys that are all multiple guys that are 30, 34 years and older. So we can't treat this like 4 edges and 3 of them are 25 years old and they can rock 600 snaps without even breaking a sweat. That's not going to be the case. Yeah. He's good for 350. He's going to give you 350 snaps, coach. And that's what he's got. And plus a little bit of playoff time, because you got through the playoff stuff on top of it. So I did try to really look deep into this, Abdi. I'm not giving you a flippant answer here where it's like I wish I had something a little bit more, some readily available options. I mean, a Nick Airbig maybe. I know that there's been some wonder about him out there in Pittsburgh, and that maybe he wants to have a little bit of a different spot, a different landing zone. So that could be maybe a guy that you look at. But our part here becomes guy's going to be traded. You're going to trade for a guy that's probably going to cost a little bit more than the team wants to be spending on them, i.e. kind of like what the Vikings did with Grenard to the Philadelphia Eagles. And what you have right now is really not any kind of player that's sitting on a roster right now weighting it down in that way. So that does also make it hard to predict here. It's really a very thin time right now as far as edge rushers, and why I really like them going and getting Fowler right now, because we talked about in the last show, bird in the hand, two in the bush, and you might wait out and hold out and not get one of these guys now, and then you come down around the end to the start of the season or the trade deadline and find that they have kind of turned into gold, as much because of their scarcity right now, as not as much as maybe just the impact, just that there's not as many of them out there to be had. And so you maybe would have gotten a little bit tighter. But I'm not sure, man. Maybe someone in the chat here will have one, in addition to that. I mean, a Cam Jordan, a Clowney, man, would make, I would applaud. I would absolutely, at that point, I'm giving the offseason, probably going from like an A- kind of position to like A. Pure solid 95 A if you grabbed a Cam Jordan or a Clowney in addition to this. Because it's smart money. It's market opportunity. It's you reinforcing the edge in a way that goes beyond what you had last season, far beyond. It turns your defensive line unquestionably into the best in all of football if it isn't already. I'd love to see it, man. Let's go. And if you do have a question, comment for me, just if you could put in B, Brando, Hawks Nest, HN in the comment when you post it. Corey says, great pickup. We aren't done yet. Yes, sir. Yeah, no real need to rush. That's why you like this deal, because you didn't shoot your whole load. You didn't fire all your bullets. You fired a bullet or two. $5 million ain't nothing on a 1-year contract. That's almost become just about close to vet minimum at this point. It's not that, but it's like not that far away. It's a good deal. Yeah, if Griffey had stayed healthy with the Reds, he would have been one of the best in baseball ever. It's kind of like, to me, that's almost an example, though, of a little bit of like a point of pride, because what happened is he aged like typically guys in their 30s who played a ton of sports like he had been on the field for so many games and on AstroTurf in the Kingdom. It's like, yeah, unless you're taking some juice, your body's going to break down. You're going to get older. You're not going to be the same you were, and it kind of shows you he wasn't on the juice because he kept running into those injuries. And, did it clean in an era when everyone else seemingly was doing it dirty, or just a lot of people were doing it dirty. Artie says, when supply is lessened and the demand stays the same, prices always go up. Yeah, exactly. Kind of the nice part about this is that, there's teams that like to top off their edge group, and that's why I think with Fowler, he came here willing a little bit to give them a marginal discount. Not that he had a rip-roaring season last year by any measure, but just his track record has been pretty solid, even as a gun for hire. And I have to wonder if this is going to be one of those representations we look at this year where we go, you're a team competing for Super Bowls, and there's going to be those vets that have been in this league for years who played on a lot of losing teams, who really are tired of that taste, who would like even just that one opportunity to go out there and get to a championship. You have to wonder, a guy in Fowler is going to be 32 by the start of the season, much like DeMarcus Lawrence, if he has that sort of singular mindset and motivation at play, especially coming to a team where that's going to be permeating the culture and the locker room. You have to wonder about that possible positive effect on him. Like I said, 2 best years of his career. 2 years where he performed at his best were actually on teams that were winning football teams. And he's been on a lot of other teams that haven't been winning football teams. Rob says, just got here. Love the signing. Upgrade over Mafe while being like 10% of the cost. Yeah. Pretty amazing, huh? Not a multi-year deal, not $20 million a year, $5 million. This is why you don't spend that kind of money on, Mafe. This is why you got to be careful on a guy like Derek Hall. I'm not saying we don't sign Derek Hall, but a lot of y'all out there in automatic mode on the 22, 23 million per year it's going to cost to keep Derek Hall in the house. Like, I'm not opposed to that, but that we want to be paying that for a couple sacks a year. We're sure we can't get that kind of production without having to pay $23 million per year on a multi-year deal. The Northwest staff can't wait for roundtable tonight. It's going to be good. It's going to be real good. RD says playing for a Super Bowl does wonders for those vets. People were saying D-Law was washed and had a resurgence last year. Yeah, you can't discount it. It's a little bit of a, it's not a woo-woo thing. It's just a thing that like I can't point to something and be able to prove it. I can only show you that like an athlete will tell you this when you get into an organization and you get into a locker room that has guys that aren't in little cliques, where you have some guys that are like clock in, clock out guys, some guys that are passionate, some guys that just hang out with their own guys, and then some guys that are just individual, and that it's not a collective unit together. And that as well with that, you have guys who have different motivations to do different things. I'm out here to get my numbers. I got to get my yards. I got to get mine. Versus if we get ours collectively, I will get mine. And you have a guy that gets to go to that kind of locker room and be a part of that, and it rubs off on him. And then the way that can galvanize things and energize things and give you a shot of life, especially for a team in Seattle that's, as we showed last year with DeMarcus Lawrence, understands so well, from their medical department to how they kind of just handle these guys on keeping them fresh, like you did with Leonard Williams last year, like you've done since he's come here, taking these older players, finding a way to have them very productive, but also you can see with them managing how they're utilizing them throughout to keep them fresh and good. So it's like it's all together in how it comes forward in that way. And extra motivating factor, I think, is absolutely right. What's up, Frogman? RR to replace Mafe, who was unproductive and somewhat of a disappointment with a proven vet who can still get to the quarterback, is a great move. What an offseason for the Hawks and the front staff. They're being smart. They're being smart. They're not just doing hyper aggressive stuff to say that we're the champions so we can do whatever we want. We'll just be super aggressive. And doesn't, if we fail, then F it. People will just look back at us and say, well, they try to be aggressive, so you can't fault them. I mean, if you think about it, folks, that's a very straightforward and easy way for the offseason for the front office to just get a win if they just want to go get a win sort of with the PR public. Oh, Seattle went out and made this aggressive trade and that aggressive trade, and they signed all their guys, and Kenneth Walker remains, and Kobe Bryant remains, and they just brought the whole band back together again. Like, well, everybody would be lauding you right and left. Harder to take the approach where you're like, no, we're going to learn some lessons from the prior run. We're going to make some hard decisions with certain players. We're not going to overpay a running back. We're not going to sign the biggest, richest free agent running back contract in NFL history just to retain our own guy. We're going to do this smart. And this is another sign of that. Somebody else wants to go pay Boye Mafe $20 million a year on a multi-year deal. Good luck. Good luck. We'll find a smarter way to do this. Yeah, I agree 100%. RD says, I think there's something about the Cowboys that drains the will out of their players. Probably Jerry Jones. There's a reason we say it starts with ownership. We talk about championships. And when people have talked about championships with the Seahawks, and of course, there's another nice thing about winning one now again, and one that I've been banging on this before we won the championship, by the way, and that's that the Seattle Seahawks became a championship mindset as far as an organization when Paul Allen bought the organization. And it starts with ownership. And a lot of people would push back through the years with me and say, well, no, it was Carroll. Carroll established coming in with him. And I went, We got to a Super Bowl with Mike Holmgren too. Hadn't been to a Super Bowl with any other owner prior to that. And we got back to it again. And it's because you have an organization that is all about winning. And there are other organizations that are all about winning, but the Cowboys aren't just all about winning. They're all about the circus. They've got tours going through their facilities. There's a player working out and lifting, and here comes some looky-loo with his camera. Who the hell is that? What is going on? You know, it's just this, like, it's an attraction show thing Jerry Jones has going on. And I will give them this. They're doing some smarter stuff here, I think, the last year, and not paying Micah, even though they let that situation get into a place where it didn't have to get to, and how that whole thing ran out. But bad ownership, doesn't matter what you got on downstream. You're pouring chemicals at the top. It's all going to flow down to the bottom. It's not going to just stay there at the top of the crib. That's the case with Jerry. Base loving the signing. RR says if Tayakata doesn't take a step back, I think the defense is better this year. It's got a real chance to be. RR, I agree with you. I mean, you're returning almost everybody. You're returning a lot of your depth. You are also getting the guys now in the third year of what is a very dense playbook. Mike does a good job of taking what is a lot of different moving parts defensively and what he can do and execute, and simplifying it down for defenses to be able to understand it very easily on the fly. But I think that he still at times went last year to moments of vanilla, as much as because as far as the fronts go and simulated pressures and stacked boxes go, he still was very complicated on the back end, of course, with what he's doing with the coverages. But I think he wants to eventually be able to marry everything together. And you can do that when you really have the players who have really mastered the playbook in a major way, and you're really comfortable with their skill set and what they can and cannot do. So it's a combination of kind of the learning factors at play there that you wonder about now as you get into the third year of him here, if there isn't some real extra stuff there that he can kind of build upon, extra little points of details within the defense, little extra stuff they can run within the defense that maybe they couldn't have run in his first year or two. Great value, isn't it, Nicholas? Not too shabby, huh? Rob says, I see Neal being a more consistent upgrade over Woolen. I see Fowler being an upgrade over Mafe, and I see the combination of Okada and Clark being an upgrade over Bryant. This defense will be better. I like where you're operating from, man. Can't say I disagree in any way. I got to check and see if there's a round table tonight. I think we were running one, but I'm not positive. Rockman, Clowney about the same price to be nicey. Can you guys imagine? $10 million we get Clowney and Fowler. I mean, can you just picture that edge room, And you're telling all the guys, you're like, we're going for a ring. We're all going to be about the mindset. We're not going to put too much of a load on you. So we're not going to pay you $5 million and say, okay, go run 650 snaps this year. Like, we'll keep you fresh. We won't overrun you. We got 5. We got 5 in the stack. We're going to run the ball. We're going to bury play clocks on a weekly basis. We're going to bury possessions on a weekly basis. So you're getting all that and the chance for a ring. What do you say? What do you say? What do you say? I trust Mike and Frazier being able to develop the second cornerback with Woolen leaving, more consistency with more focus and less mental lapses, addition by subtraction. Yeah, I could definitely see you getting a little bit of an upgrade at that spot. I think the bare minimum, he provides this equivalent production of play ultimately in that he's going to be better as a run defender. He's going to be better about getting off blocks. He is a guy that in coverage I don't think would be a supreme huge step back to what Woolen was giving you in coverage, where even when you consider what Woolen gives you as far as the good coverage numbers and those games where he could be kind of shut downy, he also then just had all those mental moments too, though, that you'd have where it'd be like, dude, what is going on? That, and also the taunting. And it was also kind of like there was some negatives there too, with even the positives at play there with Woolen. Misfit all about Herbig. Let's go, Misfit. Kyle, Brandon, roundtable thought. When y'all do record predictions this year, y'all should have to predict each loss. Mike and Jesse saying they were going 9-8 or worse while unable to justify it was insane. Oh, goodness. Do a record predict when you should all have to predict each loss. I'll try to see if we can do something like that. Some of it's kind of out of my hands because it gets kind of run by, the collective there a little bit. But we'll do some kind of, record prediction with it. It will be interesting to see where Mike and Jesse land on their Rams and 49ers. Jesse tends to be pretty realistic, but Cardinals in the round table have been getting a lot of love and me being in there last year. I remember I was I think I said 6 wins and everybody was aghast. They're like, how do you have the Cardinals only at 6 wins? You think they're going to take a step back? I'm like, yeah. Kyle, Brando, remember when Jesse asked if Mike Macdonald was on the hot seat last offseason if he doesn't win a Super Bowl? Jesse had to hold so many L's last season. It was beautiful to watch. I had a truly satisfying year in I get to cover my Seahawks. I get to cover Super Bowl champion, rock with you guys. Then I get to go over this round table where NFC West rivals and have all of them talking their stuff, calling us the roaches of the division, bop-a-da-bop-a-da-bop, right? Hating on Sam Darnold. We ain't going to do nothing, making all these prognostications about what we couldn't do. And then just watching them week by week, having to, like you say, eat those L's, man. It was a phenomenal season. It was a season that I will never hope to be able to ever top again. It was too good. Our ARD loved the Edge edition here, man. Athletic guy, good speed to power, good length, can come in there and he's got a good track record of being a good edge for hire kind of guy that can come in and give you at least some pass rush off that edge and fits to this defense. Yeah, it's pretty funny, Kyle. I'm asking about the hot seat with Mike. And I'm sure I can't remember what I said at the time on that, but I'm sure I shot that one down pretty good. Yeah, D-Law, I think, is 33, but he is turning 34 soon. Nightmares Super Slut says predicted the Hawks would win 11 or 12 wins last year and they surpassed expectations. Curious if next year they may start off feeling good about themselves and maybe not as intense. I think it's a valid question to ask. It's one where, you win a Super Bowl and, it is hard to come back that next year and always redial back up that same kind of energy once again. It really is. And so I think that there is a reason it's reasonable to ask and wonder on it because we have seen teams that they have run into this. And I think as well, though, there's really no way of knowing until you kind of run into the season if the players took the off season and were kind of like satiated and said, we did it, we got it done, we're good. I'm not going to go quite as hard this off season as I did last off season because we did it, we're good, done. And human nature is that, when you do reach that ultimate land like that and you had to put in so much to get there, that there's a little bit of just a margin, a little bit of just easing off just a bit. And sometimes that can be just enough to, allow you, like you say, to have a bit of a slow start and take a little bit longer to get ratcheted back up and get going. There are though times too, where sometimes you can also, this is what makes it hard to predict to me, where there's also representations of sort of a synergy off of that win. And then you come back the next season and the team's still really cooked up and ready to go. You think about the Seahawks coming off the Super Bowl win back in 2013, and they came back that next year against the Packers, and you took it to the Packers at home in that first game, and that team looked like it was locked and loaded, and Percy Harvin was going off in that game, and everything looked like the future was like they're just going to run through again this year. And it took them a little bit of time that year to find it. So even then, as they started out hot, they still fell into a little bit of that trapping, and then they kind of found their way back in as the year went along. So it's kind of all types on this one, and there is that human nature to, I think, and one reason why I wanted to post your comment here is because I do wonder about this with the team too, because it is that thing that you just don't know until you'll see it, and you do know human nature is thus that you become a champion like that a little bit, and you get a little bit fat and happy, metaphorically speaking. We'll see with this team. Good news is you got a young team that should be still very able to, bounce back with some freshness to them as far as the legs from the last year and not be too beaten down. And you got a young coach who's still very hungry and will keep them, I think, engaged. I think those factors as well help. Rockman, I wonder if he cashes in a $3 million bonus. Probably if he hits a double-digit sacks. Maybe. Telios, is Fowler a vast improvement to Mafe or a wash? I think it's probably pretty much close to a wash of a situation. I think he's probably a little bit of a better pass rusher. Mafe's probably a little bit of a better run defender, marginally speaking. But they're very close to each other, I think, when it all gets said and done. Oh, Nicholas, man, I'm sorry to hear that, bro. Well, you're doing all right. Is there anything better than watching McVay throw a fit? No. I love it. More I thought about it, I thought, yeah, I shouldn't have brought that up, and we shouldn't even have brought that call to the Bear. I just couldn't get over that 2-point conversion, and what happened? Telios looked at the roster, and Riley Mills was listed as an edge typo. It's an ESPN typo thing, so they don't have a way of really seemingly understanding how to structure sort of 3-4 defenses and how to list them right. So it's kind of like they're listing them like old school 3-4 defenses, where it's like the old school 3-4 defensive end, but it's essentially a defensive tackle. But he's a DT. DT. They're not moving to an edge. Thank you, Nicholas. I'm glad you're liking the Clips channel. Got the thing rolling good over there. My man's over there doing great work on the Clips side of it. So appreciate you guys liking that over that side. Uber, not a new take, but it always amazes me how we always hear how football, the ultimate team sport, yet so many put all their eggs in one basket. So many go for a few superstars when so much can derail. It's a great point, Uber. And I think it's also pretty pertinent here to your Seattle Seahawks, because here's a team that's talked about like, and they're almost expanding, where it's not only about the 70, they'll talk about, it's about the 120, the 120 guys that we know of, that have been in our building, that have practiced with us, that won't be here for the regular season, but have been through the program when we can have them in the program, when we can have a more of an expanded roster. Can we develop them? Can we round out ultimately the strongest 120 and then the strongest 70? And like you say, Uber, I think many more teams would get caught up on, let's get the star and impactful players, and then we'll just kind of like, mold around it with some like just get by guys, and that'll be enough to take us to the promised land. I think it's the same thought process that takes so many teams to drafting a quarterback versus building up actually a really great roster and then going and getting the quarterback, or at least having something for the quarterback in place before you go and pick him, setting him up for either success or failure. And it does show you those organizations, even when they got the money, even when they got the brain power, can sometimes run things inappropriately, and you can understand why they fail. These teams don't fail just because it's a league of parity and just it didn't happen to be your lucky number this year. You fail because your decision-making is flawed. And it's flawed for, like you mentioned here, Uber, just this kind of reason, where you're just hoping for the simple thing. Let me just get a couple guys, then I don't have to think about the rest of the stuff. I just fill it in, get the couple guys, that'll be enough, and we take us. No, think about everything. Take it all into account. Don't try to simplify. Always the drive in this sport, and both fans and I think teams make this mistake, is the drive in the sport to get to the simplified conclusion on a player, on a team, on a system, on a game. Oh, this game came down to one play. Wait, no, it didn't. We had 120, 130 plays in this game. How are you going to pick one play from it and say that this whole game was this? It's less than 1% of the whole game. Take it all into account, or as much as you possibly can. HHGB, are you ready for Aaron Rodgers to join the NFC West? Oh, please, no. No! Hey, you can come on in. We'll bust him up. We'll put him in the retirement home. I've got no problem with that. Jeff or Thistle in the house. What's up, Jeffrey? It's good to see you, man, with a double dip donation of $5. Thank you so much, man. In defense of the Ravens, Max Crosby seems like a dude who has nothing outside of football and would play on a hamburgered knee until the end. Yeah, you do get concerned with Max. The thing with this whole Max thing to me, Jeffrey, is that the Ravens have a lot stronger leg to stand on, no pun intended, with the Max Crosby situation. If not for the fact that you had freaking Trey Hendrickson literally in the building at the very same time that you were trying to find your way out from under the Max Crosby trade. And it just screams to the fact that, you started the Crosby trade out, remembering what that is, when it's announced versus when they start the process of the trade there with the Raiders and negotiating what is going to be to take, it's a multi-week process, right? There was a long negotiation process there at play. So when they started that process out with Max, Trey Hendrickson was going to go for this amount of money, and it was going to be outside of what they wanted to pay for Crosby. And now you get a couple weeks down the line and free agency hits and Crosby's not getting his price goes down into a place where they're like, well, that's much more of what we're willing to pay. And now suddenly, you got a problem with Crosby's knee. You saw in the reaction out there of the people in the National Football League and the rancor that was thrown in the Ravens' direction because of what they did. That is not a way you go in the league. There's plenty of players that get moved in a deal like this, that the team that's getting that player understand, look, you're getting a guy that just came off surgery. You're getting a guy that has had a couple of knee surgeries. I don't want you walking in this deal and we're going to go through all this negotiation just for you to come down the line and be like, oh, well, his knee. I'm telling you about his knee. Like, he's still playing on it. It's a part of this process. I got teams that are willing to trade with us who understand the knee thing. Like, I don't want this to hang us up. So let's get past the knee thing. So it is just, there is kind of a lot wrong in that deal there with the Ravens on this one that doesn't add up. And, they definitely did the whole situation dirty. They did the Raiders dirty on this, and it'd be interesting to see if it does cause some issues down the line with them, as far as other trade partners go, especially if you happen to have a player that's kind of on the line with maybe where, his injury health is at. So it's just kind of a bad look. I mean, they failed him on a physical. He was one month removed from having meniscus surgery on the knee. That in itself, Jeffrey, is kind of the tell there, because no one's going to pass a physical 1 month removed from a meniscus surgery. You're still, the stitches have barely healed. So I don't know. I think that they just thought that they had a better market opportunity, and so they just tried to find a creative way to, they couldn't come out and say like, well, we didn't know trade was going to be this cheap when we started the Crosby trade negotiations. Not to mention, you can't nix a trade because you happen to have buyer's remorse. You can only nix the trade unless you've got the actual failed physical. So I think they're up to some shenanigans. Jeffrey, thanks for another $5 donation. McVay and Stafford going to start a 90s boy band after this football thing doesn't work out. Maybe so. Maybe they'll be in the broadcast booth together, Jeffrey. Like Sean gets the broadcast job, Matthew's right next to him. Maybe kind of cool to have a coach and his former quarterback in the booth breaking down a game at the same time. Boy, they'd be probably highly paid. $50 million probably a piece a year about for doing that. But I could see it. I got to create that thumbnail at this point, Jeffrey. Who's the definitely McVay's going to be the Timberlake for sure, right? Like, he's definitely the Timberlake in that aspect of things, right? I'll be right back. 1 second. Appreciate you, Jeffrey. Jimmy Place, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, the Rams are your daddy, and we are the real champs. Enough said. What? I keep looking over at my standings here, Jimmy. I see us in first place. I mean, hard to be our daddy, man, when we beat you 2 times out of 3 last year. Hard to beat our daddy when we take you down the conference championship. Hard to be our daddy when we're so in your head you're trying to change rules in the offseason over 2-point conversions and backwards passes. Kind of feels like a little bit the opposite direction at this point. And we're sitting in the catbird seat, younger roster, got the chip in the bank. You got Stafford, the sands of the hourglass, just the last little flex just falling through the bottom of that thing, and you can feel it. You can feel it in the bottom of your heart, and you know it's going to be a long journey bringing it back once he's gone. And you just know maybe too, somewhere there, you don't talk about it at parties, that Sean McVay might just go with him. And then what are you going to do? All your cronky billions won't be worth a lick of squat because the cupboard will be bare. Thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy with another $2 donation. How many washed up Rams players you guys want? Frauds. See, it's hard to do the frauds when we beat you 2 out of 3 times, right? Dun, dun, dun. It's hard for us to be frauds when we had to win our division twice, right? It's hard to be frauds when you had one of the best all-time teams represented by DVOA, especially when they had to take down also one of the highest DVOA teams of all time in the Rams 2 out of 3 games. I mean, it's a tough argument to make on this one. We earned our way. We earned our keep. And we did it twice over. Industry Worth, what's the band's name? Ram you. Ram love. I got to start thinking about all my Ram puns that I can turn into a boy band name now. Jimmy says, I didn't know Dante Fowler was still in the NFL. Well, he's still been banging around, man. He had 11 sacks 2 years ago. Jimmy, appreciate all the donos. Says, with another $2 donation, why are the Rams favored to win it all? Respect. Well, I mean, I don't really care about respect personally. Everybody in the world can disrespect us. We'll just keep throwing championship trophies in the trophy case, and they can disrespect all they want. I ain't gonna worry about that. If I got to choose between respect or championships, I'll take the championships. And I do believe as well that the Rams were favored, if I'm not mistaken, to win it all last year. But it seems like, as smart as Vegas is, like, as much as they seem to be on everything and never get it wrong, they didn't seem to get that one wrong. They got that one right. I mean, isn't that weird? So it's kind of like, almost like, it's kind of like a mark of you're certainly going to fail if Vegas picks you to win the Super Bowl if you're the betting favorite. Whereas we last year, Jimmy, they had us at 7.5 wins. So, like, the projection game on gambling, when it comes to some stuff out there like that, you go, I don't know how much solid ground that is. I think it's just that it's an easy answer to go to the Rams. It's hard to think a little bit outside the box, but look, we're the champs. We've earned the right to be on top. And as I said, we won it twice over last year. Yeah. Twice over we won our division. Blew the doors off Patriots in the Super Bowl. We're number one. We're number one. Jeffrey, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, just put my lawn chair here in the winning circle. Let's go. Let's go. Jeffrey's got it. Jimmy says, we all saw how the Rams lost. We dominated. Frauds. Again, Jimmy, I don't know what games you're watching, bro. We might be watching different games in different dimensions of space and time. I thank you for the donation, but we won 2 of 3 games, my man. And the one game that you won, we literally had a field goal kick, barely miss essentially, or we win that game too as well. And so I'm not here to say we blew the doors off you by any measure in any of the games, but you didn't. I think our definition of domination and the term and what it means are 2 different things. It reminds me of The Princess Bride, man. You keep using that word. I do not think you know what it means. Cal from South Park, thank you for the $5 donation. Over under punches thrown by Puka when he plays Seattle. Clark and Spoon are going to bait that man. No Reek Woolen head case to exploit now. Good luck, LA. Well, over under punches would be good. We obviously got a punch from him a year ago, 2 years ago there with Kobe Bryant. Tossed a swing at him after an interception. I think the over under would be more interesting with Puka would be on the bite. I want to know what Puka Nacua, I want to have like how many bites per game. Because I think we're going to start going back like the Zapruder film through former Rams footage of Puka, and we're going to be finding him like, and another one. He's biting everything. Why didn't we notice this? It's his whole technique. It's how he's getting open. He bite and breaks. Bite and breaks. Bite and breaks. You know what I mean? Some guy's got a stutter step. He bite and breaks. You know? Sometimes he chicken wings you. Sometimes he bite and breaks. It's all in the technique, man. And in the NFL moves so fast you can't see it. It's like the old Looney Tunes thing, you know, where he's like, the guy hits in, he's like, now let's slow that down. It's like, you're like, I did not see that in real time. Yeah, they don't got Woolen to take advantage of no more, does LA. And they were able to pick on him for the last couple of years, a couple of different moments. Jimmy says, you have 2 trophies, one fraudulent one. Relax. Thank you for all the donos, Jimmy. Yeah, it's called a fluke. Sam will see ghosts. Oh, we're still on the ghost thing with Sam after he dropped 350 on your ass? Really? I can't even know where to begin on this one, Jimmy. You need a 1 in a billion fluke call to win, y'all fraud. Yeah, it's kind of like what I was just talking about a second ago, Jimmy, where it's like, this is what I think happens at times with sometimes fans who want to operate in sort of a simplistic mindset when they look at the NFL or NFL games. It's hard to look at like the totality of plays. It's hard to think about all of what happened in a game and try to measure that up. It's much easier to just try to sort of pinpoint it on one play and say, I'm going to throw out the 129 other plays. I'm going to throw out overtime period with all that goes on with that stuff. Like, I'm just going to concentrate on this one play because it kind of like affirms what I want for the narrative to be. And that's fine. I mean, you can do that, but you're not giving me any real place to go on in that kind of discussion because you're ignoring 99.5% of the rest of the game to try to illustrate what is a predefined point for you of what you want it to be. And it's why I do say, Jimmy, and I do hope that your Rams organization and that your fan base has this very same mentality going through this offseason. And I think they have, frankly. I think you see it in the fact that they just kind of punted on a draft class that they're going to get nothing quantifiably from this season. And that is that they're talking themselves in the fact that we did it by luck. They're talking themselves into it being some 2-point conversion play as this whole driver, the sole driver to why you guys don't have a Super Bowl championship. And I love that it's that way because instead of owning up to why you really fell short of us, for instance, having an awful special teams unit, as I joked, the 2-point conversion play was such a travesty. It was so horrible that your Rams team had to fire your special teams coach directly after the game. It's kind of a point there, right? So I hope that you guys collectively are in the spirit of where you're at here with this, Jimmy, and that you guys are hyper concentrating on, the frauds just lucked out. That's how you did it. Please do. Please do. Because it'll be that much longer that you guys, from either the fan standpoint, organizationally, coaching standpoint, actually solve us and solve what we're doing and why we won. Because it wasn't done because of one simple thing. It wasn't done because one simple play. This was done because a collection of decisions were made very smartly and a roster was built very strongly. And it's one that you're going to see laid to bear once again this year as they're going to be even stronger. And none of your big old talk can do anything about it. You can squeak and all you want about the fraud talk all you want, but it ain't going to amount to a hill of beans when we're going back once again. We've owned this division since we walked into the NFC West. Owned it. Won it far more than your Rams. Been the Super Bowl. Far more than your Rams. Since we walked into this division. Is what it is. It's our division right now. We'll give it back to you someday. Someday. Jimmy says, when you depend on a fluke calls and muff punt fluke, a muff punt isn't a fluke. A muff punt is the representation. See, this is what exact, Jimmy, I hope you can kind of see that you're leaning in and you're falling into the exact thing that I'm talking about here. Where I say, rather than your Rams fans like take into account and going, hey, you know what? We didn't actually pay attention enough to special teams last offseason. So hyper concentrated on creating our beautiful offense and having our extra parts on defense that we just kind of ignored our special teams unit. And this might come to bite us in the butt. And look, it bit us on the butt in the biggest football game of the year in the conference championship. It also bit you on the butt in that same fluky 2-point game that you want to talk about. I know you don't want to mention anything about the punt return touchdown. Partly why your special teams coach got fired, but partly because you guys didn't pay attention to in the offseason. I ask you, what have you done this offseason to really increase and better your special teams unit? So when your special teams unit fails again this year, what's the excuses then? At what point do you come around to going, oh yeah, maybe we should actually address our special teams unit. Oh yeah, maybe we should actually put some resources into it and care about it a little bit. The muff punt happens because you didn't put a proper punt returner back there. Guess what? My Hawks did the same thing 2 years ago with D. Williams. We stuck a guy back there to kick return who couldn't literally catch the ball. But that was the failure of the Seattle Seahawks. That was the failure of their imagination and who they put back there to return those kickoffs. It wasn't a fluke. It was bad decision-making on the part of the organization. So I'm glad you've actually brought this up. It represents a little bit what I'm trying to talk to you about on this, and I'm actually trying to have a back and forth with you on this. I mean, I know talking a bunch of trash is fun, but there's actually some, good, I think, conversation to be had on this where it wasn't fluke. It was your bad investment into special teams. And that's kind of the point of what I'm saying. When you start speaking in fluke, fraud, this sort of terms, you're kind of ignoring what it is that really caused your team to fall short. And guess what? Your team didn't just fall short here last year. Your team fell short also the previous year and the previous year to that. So what's the reasoning? Is it all just luck why the Rams never win the championship? I'm sure the national media would love to spin it that way, but it's not the truth. Kyle, thank you for another $2 donation. I see the Rams organization and fans aren't over the 2-point conversion. No, that thing is stuck. That is like stuck in between the tooth, and they've tried to chisel that thing out of there with the floss. They've tried to pick it out of there. It is not coming out. I'll tell you what, Kyle. We might come back in the documentary. It'll be like, and that was the moment that the Rams organization started into a tailspin that they could never hope to pull themselves out from under. Suddenly, Puka was chewing women and unable to stop drinking. Stafford started to think about creeks in Montana and fly fishing. Jimmy says Brandon will get sloppy drunk again to cope, laughing out loud. You never know. You never know when it comes to that, man. Rams lit up your overrated defense. I love it. Yeah, but you guys definitely took our defense to task a couple different times last year, which was discouraging. Discouraging. The one thing I'll say is, like, you guys were kind of it. Everybody else had kind of a long day at the office. So we'll see, man. I don't know where you get overrated again on, like, number one defense in the NFL. Like, you're kind of, you're doing the definition of overstating your case, and it's rather than just build your case rather than overstate it. You can speak in magnanimous terms if you want. I mean, shorthand's great, dude, but I don't restrict chat in that way. And you're not really making a case. You're just sort of saying, this is what this is. We'll make the case for it. And if you're overstating it, you're far off the point at that point. We don't need your respect, Jimmy. I thank you for all your donations, man, but I could care less about respect. I care about championships. It's the same thing of, like, Cardinals getting caught up on selling tickets for Jeremiah Love. I'd put it in the same category. I could give a rightly good hell about respect. We're in Seattle. We're not on the East Coast. Respect is always going to be hard to come for any Seattle team, no matter how great they are. Your Seattle team hoping for respect, that's never coming. I don't need that. All championships. That's what we're about here. That's the gasoline that runs our engine. Kyle says, guess Jimmy's word of the day is fraudulent. I guess so, man. Oh, goodness. Again, just different definitions for different terms on stuff. So you made my point. Rams beat Rams. Seahawks didn't. Well, we put investment in special teams. It's the inverse of what you guys did, Jimmy. That's where you have two teams where you have one team with by and far the best special teams unit in all of football and another team that's sitting on the other end of the spectrum. Those two teams collide. What happens from that? So, like, Jimmy, you go back to the round table and me previewing the game of the Rams in that second game leading up to it. I said special teams is going to make an impact in this game. It's going to be a difference-making aspect to this game because you have two teams that are on two different ends of the spectrum and how much they put actual resources into both sides of that ball. I'm not just talking about punter. I'm not just talking about the gunners. I'm talking about how you block it up. I'm talking about the investment of what you put on your roster just to have special team value guys. Not even as much what they do to come out on the field as far as offense or defensively, just how great they are as far as special teamers go. And I predicted that game. It's going to make a difference. And then, oh my gosh, Jimmy, isn't it wild? It shows up in that game. And oh my gosh, once again, shows up in the next game. And that's the way that works. When it's one thing if you have a bad special teams unit, then the team they're playing against also has a bad special teams unit. But when you have a bad special teams unit and the team you're playing up against has a great special teams unit, that's too wide of a difference to where you will feel that effect in a game. You just will. And that's part of where I didn't make your point. You're missing my point more than anything else. But I don't think you were particularly interested on getting my point either. Moo, thank you for 11 months as a Hawks Nest member. You want to know what's a fraud? A team who depends on blatant no calls to win a game. Least you could do is take away one from the Pats dynasty. Yeah, that wouldn't be too bad, right? And least amount of penalties since 2020, the Rams. Least amount of penalties since 2021, the Rams. Least amount of penalties since 2022, the Rams. Least amount of penalties since 2023, the Rams. 24, 25, 26, Rams. Oh, but they're just so well coached every single season. Every other year in the NFL, look at penalties, variance all over the place. This team might be good this year. Now they'll slip down to 10 the next year. This team's up at number 1 this year. They get down to like 15 this year. Not the Rams. Every year, very, very minimally penalized, but they're just so well coached. So well. I mean, McVay he just knows how to really, yeah, they can work with players less than ever before. Yeah, there's less practice time than ever before. Yeah, there's no more two-a-days, but he just knows how to teach that perfect technique for no penalties ever, you know? Like he's so good a coach, man. He's so good. He's that good. Maybe. Jimmy says, Rams just won a ring 5 years ago, delusional boy. I feel like we have two different conversations, Jimmy. There wasn't a point that I said your Rams didn't win a Super Bowl. I said we've won more division titles and we've been to the Super Bowl more than your Rams have. Won more Super Bowls as well than your Rams have since we walked into this division coming over from the AFC West. And those are just facts. Thanks for all the donations though, man. HHG, appreciate the $5. Today's episode has been brought to you by Rams still complaining about a 2-point conversion and coping mechanism. That's right. Have you had your coping mechanism today? Do you get up in the morning and not understand why life has not worked in your favor and want to blame it on somebody else or some outside factor other than your own responsibilities or lack of abilities? Well, we've got something for you today. It's a coping mechanism. Just keep saying over and over again, fraud, and you'll eventually come around to making your peace with the fact that it's not your fault, even if it is. Jimmy says, bottom line is Rams are a much better team and those flukes will not happen again. Those were long shots. You needed a miracle to beat us. We daddy. Appreciate all the donations, man. There's a reason why McVay is regarded as the best in the NFL. Well, I think he's a very good coach. I do think that, like I tried to make, again, I don't think you're hearing any of my points whatsoever, so I'm not even sure it really does much for me to even try to address your points if you're not going to hear a single one. I'm hearing what you're saying and trying to kind of counter back, but you're not really countering back. You're kind of just, you got like one piano key and you're just kind of pressing the one piano key again and again and again and again and again. Yeah, if you're that supremely more better than us, then that would be represented by you at least having like one of the 3 games last year, you winning by far, which was not the case. You had 4 interceptions from our quarterback and it still comes down to a kick in the one game that you won. There's a lot more data to say that you guys got lucky coming with, and I'm not even saying this, but if we're really going to come down to saying one team was quote unquote luckier to win versus the other, it's more of you guys were lucky to get that one win versus us, really. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to see eye to eye on this, man, with it. And I certainly think McVay's a great coach. But as I said, I tried to kind of point back to you. This is why you try to point other data away from your team at times to prove your point. So if I go and I look at the greatest of coaches the last 20 years before McVay arrived on the scene, the most disciplined coaches at putting together great disciplined teams at being able to limit penalties, you're not going to see every single year that very same team be the least penalized team in the NFL. So maybe he's just so great at coaching, but again, I tried to point to you as well back, and I think it just kind of skims off your pond. Can't coach the players as much as you once could. Don't have as much of your hands on the players as you once did with all the new CBAs. Don't have the 2-a-days. Don't have as much practice time. So he's getting the greatest ever at limiting the penalties while having the least amount of practice time, while the NFL is more litigious and over-officiated than ever before. Something don't quite add up on that mix, but I don't think you're going to see it. Thomas, thank you for the $5 donation. And appreciate all the donation support too, Jimmy. I just love everyone knowing Seattle isn't going to back to a Super Bowl, and the argument is Kubiak is gone and Seattle lost starters. Simplistic, right, Thomas? And I got onto this about 2 years ago where I started to realize on some of the debates I would get with people and the frustrating debates you can get with people at times where you're like, I'm making point after point after point after point. I'm going from here to here to here to here to here, and I'm connecting dots for you, and I'm drawing the lines for you, and I'm making a picture for you, and you're just coming back to me and saying a little bit like Jimmy, fraud, lucky. And then it took me way too long, frankly. I was a little slow on this one to kind of realize this one, Thomas. But that's when the light bulb clicked above my head and I went, oh, there's huge sections of the NFL fan base which is not trying to look at the level NFL with any depth, which doesn't want to really, is not interested in trying to unpack and parse through and kind of realize what makes the game what it is and what makes players great and how parts work interconnected and what drives success and what drives failure. They just kind of want to drive to kind of a simplistic thing. And I'm not even knocking people that go this way with it. I do think it's funny when they want to try to get into debates and arguments that when people who do want to be of deeper discussion, who do want to get into a little bit of the darker waters, where it's like, you guys want to stay over in the shallows. Why are you coming over here to the depth? You guys like the shallows. That's your place. As I always say, I never tell a fan how to fan, but they seem to always kind of want to come over there, but they don't want to really put in the work or time or effort to really try to give much thought if they want to be in that land, in that area of things. So it is like this with the Seattle outlook this year, where they go, okay, Kubiak gone, and then Walker you didn't sign, and Woolen's gone, and so you're less now, you're sucky now, and it kind of is just that. It sounds like I'm making fun of her. I'm trying to deride the opponent the way that I just talked. It's literally how they will think about it. It will be that is as far as the brain power is going to push on that one, and I'm done. And once I realized that, I stopped getting too interested about getting into too much of the fierce debates with these kind of folks, because what's the point? What's the use? They're just, they're unwilling to try to give this any thought of any depth. And football is all about depth. It is not basketball and it is not baseball. What you see is not what you get. There are interconnected parts. There's the impact of coaching, which is much heavier than let's say a baseball coach who's basically got to sit over there and decide if he's going to have base runners run, or if he's going to bring in bullpen guys, or setting a starting lineup. It's about what you're doing. Basketball coach may be asked to even do less at this point. Okay, we're running pick and roll. It's pretty wild. So I think you get people to see those other sports and then they apply that thinking on into football. And it's like, no, there is so much more play at here that makes this thing go, that part of what makes it so interesting to me and makes it so just, it has to be where we can talk about this 365, because you can get into all of the layers that exist in this sport that make it so interesting. But it is what I have found with the outlooks. I have yet to see a complicated, in-depth breakdown as to why Seattle takes this step back, as to why we've gone behind the Rams. I find it's all driven to some simplified outlook that's paper thin, sitting in the shallows, and it doesn't amount to a hill of beans for me. I go, yeah, so you're not basing it on anything, so your opinion means nothing then. And that's how that works. Base it on nothing, your opinion's worth little. Actually base it on more than just like a simplistic thought. You got something there, Jimmy says, we were up by 16 with 7 minutes until the flukes happened. Like I said, Jimmy, this is where I would say to you, when you make excuses like flukes and say frauds and say luck, when these are the terms you're using, that's not taking ownership or responsibility for why you lost the football games. And so, you gave up a punt return touchdown. Your special teams sucked. Our special teams was great. You haven't improved your special teams this offseason. I do hope, Jimmy, when your special teams unit again costs you, and probably against us again this year, that you'll come first thing in the chat with the donut saying, hey, wow, it was like you're psychic on that to be able to see that in advance. And it won't be that I'm a psychic. It's that you can see the same problem coming up and presenting itself again for the Rams. Maybe partly because they're making so many excuses rather than just taking on the ownership about why they truly lost. And I've sensed it for the Rams. I'm not just saying this today, Jimmy. This is something I've been sensing with the Rams since that game. It's why you guys went on tilt and you took so long to kind of bounce back into the getting right for the playoffs. And I still don't think you guys got back to your best form after that point. You started concentrating, the team did, I think, on the wrong things about coming out of that game and not the right things. And I hope you guys do so this offseason. I hope the front office is saying the same things to themselves this offseason. We had that team. We're way better than them. I really do. I'm not being facetious to you. I'm not being sarcastic to you. I truly do. Because I think my organization, even in their greatest successes, looks within themselves and says, how can we improve it more? How can we make it even better? Where are we weak that we can get stronger? How can I take a Boye Mafe and get even better, but not have to pay prime price to do it? So I can add even more to the team collectively beyond that. So it is one where I think we have two different thought processes here. We'll see which one bears out to the most ultimate success, but I've got a lot of faith in my team. I think they're in a good place. Jimmy says, like Jake told you, you needed everything to go your way to squeak a win at home. Rams were the better team and beat themselves. Flukes happen in sports. Yeah, that's, again, where it's hard to use the term fluke when you play a team 3 times in the NFL over the course of the NFL season. You can go with one game and go, well, here's this one game, but you played us 3 times, right? The conference championship happened too as well. Right. And the conference championship game might not have been close if, like, for instance, Woolen doesn't get a weird taunting penalty called at that time of the game. So, that definitely shifted things in your guys' favor. That thing's probably over at that point, and we win that one comfortably. It's kind of fluky. You guys got a penalty call. Oh, it's kind of fluky that the officials worked in your favor at a key moment there to help you guys out and keep you in the game. So it's like we can play that game, but that's where it comes down to, like, we played 3 times. We beat you 2. We had a field goal just missed at the end of the 3rd game, or we would have beat you 3 times. That's not you dominating. That's not you by far the better team. That's you as a team losing twice to your rival within the division, us winning the division twice. So it's really hard for you to have a leg on this one to stand on with it. It is. And it's not a fluke when you have a crap ass special teams unit. We have a great special teams unit. And that's one of the big lightning factors of that game that allowed for that reversal to happen, because it could happen in one play, taking almost no time off the clock. And it showed a shining example of the failure of your special teams unit, one you're not owning up to at all. And one I am desperately hoping the Rams continue to not own up to as well. I hope McVay is ignoring this as well, because it will bite him on the butt. Just like I said what happened last year. Like I said in the second Ram game, like I said in the conference championship game, and like I will predict when we play the Rams in the first game this year too as well. And it'll happen. It will happen. Industry word. Thank you, Cal, for the $10 donation. Very kind of you. Very, very kind of you. How would you feel about doing a series about the history between the X team, Rams, 49ers, Pats, etc., and the Seahawks? Could bring some more rich Ram fans into the chat. Yeah, that could be fun. It is a little hard with us on our teams in this division because we did just come to this division like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, essentially in 2000. We were in the AFC West before that. So we kind of had all these rivals before that. And now we've got the new rivals, industry worth, with the Rams and the 49ers and a little bit of the Cardinals to a degree. So it is a little bit newish, but that could be an interesting series to dive into. It's a good suggestion. I'll see if maybe I can kind of come up with something on that. HHG, thank you for the $2 donation. We're making fan bases mad. Hawks are so back. Oh, goodness. Jimmy says, with a $2 donation, you depend on an Amazon Prime worker to make a call laughing out loud. Again, 2-point conversion, one play in a game of 130 plays. Like, you and I will have contention about that one play. What about the other 129 that determined the win with it? Well, that was the one play that gave you a little bit of 2-point to put it in. Okay. But there's plays that went back and forth throughout the course of that game as well. And you guys had many opportunities to put that game to where it didn't have to come down to a 2-point call. How about that, Jimmy? How about not having it come down to you needing or not needing a 2-point call? Take care of business on those rest of those plays. Keep depending on a muffed punt and lame play call. I mean, I'll rely upon the team that lost by a collective 9 points on their 3 losses last year, that set a franchise record, that won a Super Bowl championship with the 3rd youngest roster in the NFL. Yes, I will rely on that baseline for success as being one that will probably breed success again this year. I will. Call me delusional. Snail says, Jimmy thinks speak is smart football talk. Yeah, it's one where it just doesn't do much for me. I mean, Jimmy, we can always play this Snail's point back and forth where I just say, you're this, you're that, as you guys, but I got respect for the Rams as an organization. There are parts I'm going to pick at with them that I think are valid to pick at. And I noticed you pushed nothing back on my pointing out the lack of investment into the special teams unit, the lack of really addressing it on the whole. to kind of treating it like the redheaded stepchild to the team. And what does that mean for you down the line? It's just one little thing. There's some other things that you can definitely look at with the course of the Rams that'll oftentimes come back. The fall back into asking Stafford to sort of save the day way too often at his age versus, falling back in and really running the ball and staying committed to running the ball for how you've especially built this roster to do that very thing, where McVay always falls back into that predilection to want to kind of throw a little bit. But we'll see this year, man. It's going to be a fun year. I'm looking forward to this rivalry once again. I think that it's a very hard point to be made on this like fraud thing that you're trying to make. And you got to do more than just say it. You got to actually build your case. Well, there's one play. Grabbing one play on an NFL season. NFL season, like I say, 130 plays in a game. 17 games now in NFL season. Playoffs. You had a chance to play us 3 different times. This is the ultimate representation last year in that battle between our teams of who truly won out in that one, had earned the right to truly win out because there was a third matchup, and because that third matchup was in the conference championship, and because that third matchup was essentially the de facto Super Bowl. That should be as much as anything. You should have you on the side of it going, okay, you guys got our number this year, that last year. We're coming back this year, though. This year, it's ours. That's a little more valid, but again, I know. I ain't going to get you there. Appreciate all the support, though. Very kind of Jimmy. And you as well, Stale. Fluke win against your daddy and then Fluke pad Super Bowl. Fluke is a heavily used word by you, my man. There's got to be something more in that dictionary. Give me at least a synonym for Fluke. I know you got a little bit more in there. Come on. Robert, my brother in the house. What's up, Rob? It's good to see you, brother. 58 months as a Hawks Nest member. Let's go. 58 months. My goodness, we're rolling. Brando is a Rams fan. Brando is the Rams fans therapist. Money in the jar. That's what I'm here to do, man. I'm already in the beginning stages of talking them through this season because they're coming in this with a lot of expectation. They're coming in this with a lot of bravado. You can feel it from my man, Jimmy. You can feel it from him, right? Dripping. The bravado dripping off, right? They're feeling themselves. And it's the problem here is that when you pull yourself to such heights and you got so much on the line, it's now or never. Is Stafford even coming back another year? Can his back even hold up for another year? You got to get it now. And somewhere in the back of your just mind, you're going, this isn't good. The window, I can see it, it's cracked open. I'm just getting a little bit of air coming through the Super Bowl window. And I'm looking over at Seattle, and they got that sucker thrown wide open, and they're bathing in the sunlight, and they're letting their luxurious hair just flop about. I'm over here with my lips next to the thing. So only fresh air you can get. And it's almost shut. It's just almost there. You look in the Rams, theirs is closed. They're looking over at the 49ers and theirs is shut. The Rams are they're breathing out their little hole there. Seattle over there and they look over at the 49er and they're over there like, it's stuck. I think somebody nailed it. Shut. Kyle walking out of the room with a hammer and nails. Koken, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, Jimmy makes the Super Bowl win so much sweeter with the cope. I enjoy it. I do. I'll try to talk him out of it, but it'll make me mad. Because like I say, I think there's a great upshot for us on this one. And I don't think it's just a Jimmy thing here on this. I think it's an organizational thing with the Rams. I think they think of it in the same way. I think if I put McVay on his little lie detector test, he'd tell me that the Seahawks had a fortuitous season. That's how they had this happen. It was a fortuitous season. It's a fortuitous bust. It's a fluky place. It's just their frauds. All right, Sean. Let's go. Thomas, thank you for another $5 as well. Appreciate you, brother. This is why I believe the Ram fans and organization is mentally weak. If it was reversed, Ram fans would tell us to get over it. How many years did the refs screw us? Quite a few. Then I've certainly gone back and pointed out on a variety of different games that we played the Rams, especially since they went to LA, weirdly enough, that there have been a variety of games that have had certainly down calls that have come down at the end that have absolutely been vicious calls that have worked in our favor and cost us a game, and at times cost us even playoff berths in those seasons because of that game. But, You get frustrated in the moment, you get mad about it in the moment, you get angry and you yell, but then you move on and you move on to the next point. I will say the one difference between that and some of what the Rams fans and Rams have pointed out to just from their standpoint of it, like McVay with this rule change thing, is that they're angry about something that was right. I can point to you a DJ Dallas at the end of the game, running up the seam, wide open. Russell sees him, throws the pass. The Rams defender is beat. He absolutely obliterates DJ before the ball arrives. Catchable ball, no pass interference. Game over, Seattle loses. I can show you Devin Witherspoon in tight coverage on Puka Nacua, not touching him in the least. Incomplete pass in the back of the end zone. Rams opportunity done for the day. We're going to win the game. Oh, no, let's do a pass interference to give him let's give him another reset of downs. Kind of like the Woolen situation in the conference championship. I can go through countless number of these. I don't even have to go to the Saints conference championship where the guy gets obliterated, costing the Saints and their organization all of their final run there with Peyton and Breeze. That was it. Done. Over with right there. Here's the close of your Super Bowl window on a crap ass call that was crap in the moment, and it looks even worse in retrospect. Our calls were right. The correct call was made on the field. They're mad about the right call being made. Not about them getting it wrong, but the right call being made. You talk about just having no leg to stand on and being ridiculous. But the term that comes to my mind and I wonder about, Thomas, with this is front runner. You're a juggernaut. You're a bully. You're Billy Badass when you happen to be the front runner and you're rolling along. Oh, what happens when you really truly get challenged, though? What happens when somebody is able to stand toe to toe with you? And suddenly now it's a lot more closer on this. Suddenly now you aren't just able to be uber brilliant boy. Boy, it's going to be a grind and a dogfight. What you got now? What you got now? Good points all around there, Thomas. I agree. 360, thank you for 24 months, 2 years. Hawks Nest member, appreciate it. Ram fans crashing out because they had a shit draft. Real talk, man. That's, their whole thing is these corners, Watkins and McDuffie. That's all you've done. That's all you've done. You got to hope Devontae Adams at 33, 34 years old can hold up for another whole season as the true number 2 target. The guy's going to get 125 targets, by the way. Not 70 targets. Not kind of fitting in even kind of a Cooper Kupp role. But as you're going to be a hyper-targeted guy in this offense. And Puka Nacua throwing his body around left and right. You lose one receiver. What's the plan there then? What happens then? Mumfield? Is Mumfield the answer? Is Whittingham? Is that going to be the answer at that point? Because you're getting nothing out of this draft. It's kind of wild when you look there. They're not going to get any returns out of this draft this year. Those guys are likely to not play on the field, if but very, very, very tiny amount. Our guys are going to play. You're going to see Neal on the field. You're going to see Bud Clark on the field. You better believe you're going to see Jadarian Price on the field. Having impact, helping us win games immediately. Jimmy says, we all know the Pats didn't belong. Hawks are mid. By that point in the season, man, it is what it is. The team that gets there is the team that gets there. It really was beyond pointing the Pats that were mid here, Jimmy. It was that the AFC had a down year this year. The AFC as a whole, if it was the Broncos, we would have blown the doors off them as well. If your Rams played the Patriots, you would have blown them out. If you played the Broncos, you would have blown them out. Right? It would have all been the same conclusion. It's a bad AFC this year and a strong NFC. And this is kind of, the NFL has a tendency to kind of be this way very often. Go look through NFL history and go look at all of the Super Bowls out there. There's plenty of them that end up in blowouts. It's just kind of the way that it sort of works with this. It's ideally you'd like to have the best 2 teams there, but that's why I say that the conference championship was kind of the true Super Bowl. Hawks are mid. Again, is your use of terms, my man, is I think you're using these terms in a way to try to overstate your case, and thus you're just you're knocking the legs out of your own argument. You got to find a little more nuance, Jimmy. Just a little more nuance. I take a 60-year-old MVP quarterback over Ghost Boy. Oh, fair enough, man. We'll see if that back can hold up for another year. I remain skeptical. Rob, thank you for the $2 donation. What drafting Ty Simpson 13 overall does to a mother effer. I probably should be more understanding because I probably would be in about the same place Jimmy would be where maybe he's at too with the thinking on that. Because I think the Ram fans are frustrated. And I've read it online. And I think that they've got a valid reason to be so. If I was a Ram fan, not operating for what I want to see the Rams do from a Hawk fan perspective, but just if I'm a Ram fan, this isn't the offseason I wanted to see them do. This is not them taking it over the top. You know, this is them like doing one thing and then clapping their hands and being like, we're good. That was it. That's all we had to do. And I'm like, no, you're going to need to do more than that. But I would be torqued up if I had a Ty Simpson's draft my 13 over pick. I would. Like, I'm talking about this receiver position. You can see right where this could go, where be it a Mekhi Lemon or Omar Cooper, you lose a guy like Devontae Adams, and now you have a Puka and a Koopa. You lose a Puka, now you've got a Mekhi Lemon you can go to, and he can fit right into that spot and run and hit the ground running and go in that spot. You know, now your offense can maintain. And as I said earlier on this is important, I think, not just because the receiving core is so lean behind the front two guys. This is so important because of the fact that the Rams time and time again over the last couple of years have fallen back in on Stafford to save the day. Hell, Matt, run game's just not working enough today. Hell, yeah, we just don't have the commitment to run the ball enough today. I just want to see you throw today, Matt. I want to drop backs. Let's just go more throwing. So if you do that, you kind of got to stack up a receiving core, right? You got to kind of stack up a receiving core where you can have like a Cooper Kupp and a JSN and a Torrey Horton and a Rashid Shaheed and then a Jake Bobo. Wait. But we're a running team. So we've stacked ourselves up more than that team is going to try to pass and is going to pass more than they have with their receiving core. Well, they live in 13 personnel. They live in 14 personnel. No, they run a lot of 11 personnel. They go 3 wide receiver sets still quite a bit. It's another spot that I have just utter certainty on and have like no waffling, no 99%. I'm like 99.9. They're going to look back at that first round pick this year and it's going to hit them at spots where they're going to say, man, if we had that first round pick here instead of Ty Simpson sitting on the bench, staring aimlessly at Matthew Stafford, that would have been a better presumptive way to go. Much better presumptive way to go. But I also wonder if at that point they'll just maybe chalk it up to luck. Yeah. No, it's not the fact that impactful receiver here with Devontae Adams out is the key here. No, it's just you guys, the ball bounced funny. It was just really windy that day. You guys are just lucky it got windy that day. Dylan, I'm going to get my coffee. I'll be right back. Dylan, thank you for the $5 donation. So Jimmy was Sam's 6 picks, a punt at the 1 yard line in the first game, a missed game-winning field goal by Myers, and Kupp's fumble in the second game, not a fluke. The problem with picking flukes, right, is it because it becomes arbitrary. What is and what isn't a fluke? It's very open-ended, and you can pick kind of, well, this feels like a fluke to me, but I'm not going to include that as a fluke. Why not? A guy with a game on the line puts a punt at the half-yard line to Dylan's point in the first game, and as close and as much as the Seahawks drove up the field in the final point at that spot and got up the field to be into scoring range for Myers to miss a very far field goal attempt, that ball's 15 yards further up the field on the punt. If it's at the 20-yard line at the punt, Seattle's easily going to get into field goal range, and Myers will probably hit that kick. To your point, Dylan. So yeah, this is why fluke, you'll never hear me use fluke in reference to football ever. Do fluky things happen? Yeah, but do teams win by a fluke? No, because 130 plays on average, 130 collective plays make up an NFL football game. 130. You want to take 10, 15 plays out and say that these measured in heavily because of their impact on the game and what happened on these 15 plays, and there's a very cognitive line between the plays as far as having a narrative to what happened to plays and how they played out that was very fit to form, that's a driving force reason as to why the game was lost. Sure. But if you're just grabbing one simple play, or you're cherry picking one here and I'm going to go grab this one over in the second quarter with about 10 minutes to go. Well, then again, you're starting at a point of conclusion, and then you're making the facts fit the conclusion. That's what you're trying to do. And so it's why use the word fluke really should be one where you don't really throw that around. Football's driven by a lot of stuff as to what wins and doesn't lose football games. It's very rarely that you just lucked into something. Tends to be more skill, better coaching, better execution. These are the driving factors. And the other stuff's just kind of superfluous, in my opinion. But good points there, Dylan. Absolutely good points. And it's why and I've been consistent on this. I was consistent on about the second Super Bowl with the Marshawn run play. Like, I hate the run play. I hate the fact you didn't run it. I hate the interception, hate the play call, hate all of it. But people getting overly caught up on the one play within that game versus, like, for instance, forgetting the fact that the defense, the Legion of Boom, gave up 10 points in the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl. We were up by 10 points and you gave up that lead. Now, they had a good reason, because all of those guys were walking out on one leg and with one arm to use pretty much. But that's why you lose that game, not the one play with Marshawn Lynch. Because that's more of the collection of snaps. Your lack of cornerback depth showed itself up over a variety of plays over the course of the game, over that very key fourth quarter over the course of the game. That's the force. That's what pushed you to the loss. Not this one little play that you want to pick out that happened at the very end of the game. Jeffrey, thank you for the $2 donation. Apparently Puka Nacua bit someone. What the F? Well, this is why it's going to be now for me forever, Puka Nacua. That's the nickname, and I'm not going to stop. Maybe it would be polite to stop. Maybe it's unfair accusations, I mean, problem with the bite marks thing, though, is that you got the indentations. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's very easy to be like, okay, let me look at your mouth. Okay, let me look at her bite. Okay, look at your mouth. Let me look at the bite. You did that shit. You did that. You did that. So these are going to be some interesting allegations. I'm sure he ends up it gets dismissed and he pays her a bunch of money and it goes away. But yeah, Puka had a bit of a weird offseason. And there seemed to be this I'm going to go on this kind of party tour thing. He's passed out. People got him on tape, passed out. It's getting arguing with the women, chewing on women, shouting places, just kind of seem a little unhinged. But he's gone to rehab, so maybe everything's kind of cleaned up now and he's good to go. And he got it all kicked out of his system. One thing for sure is I think this offseason's lost him a lot of money, because he just goes through and has a Boy Scout of an offseason and he just kind of goes clean and lean and he keeps his head, keeps himself inside and just does what he does. Like, how did they not pay him at that point? How does he not insist that they pay him that extension at this point? Versus they can come to him now and they can be like, you've been kind of a little bit of a live wire. We're a little unsure on you right now. We want to wait another year. I wonder about that, Jeffrey. We'll see. They probably end up paying him, but if he doesn't get paid, that will be the reason, right? You guys are very kind. Thank you. Thomas, another $2 donation. I respect Jake, but Ram fans lost my respect. I'm in the place of it too, a little bit with it, and I do absolutely respect Jake. Love working with him on the round table. And it's not all Ram fans to characterize him that. I will say this with Ram fans, even with Jimmy here and coming in, is that Ram fans do tend to be pretty respectful in our place of things coming into the community here. And Jimmy, even though he's using terms I don't like, he's being respectful overall in the message. There's nothing out of pocket with it. And I will say that we get sometimes the 49er fans in here and they will be very much out of pocket, especially within the chat and going at people in the chat and just, not trying to have anything close to a rational, reasonable discussion. And I think that with the Ram fans on this, I think that they feel great about themselves because this is a team that's been good for a long period of time. They won a Super Bowl back in, 19 or whatever, 20, whatever it was. And, they've been able to ride high for a long period of time. And you are going to feel yourself when you've been on top like that. I mean, that's just naturally where you're going to be at. But I think to your point, Thomas, it has been a little bit interesting watching the discourse online and watching how Ram fans view the situation with Seattle and last season. And though I'm, definitely going at pushing back against Jimmy quite a bit on this. I don't think Jimmy is alone on this one, and that there are a lot of fans that fall in alignment with Jimmy's outlook of the situation. And it does make you kind of like shake your head a little bit, because you kind of go, it just feels like you're making excuses, or we want to use the word cope, or do anything but actually give credit to the team that beat you 2 of 3 times. And I tried to make the point there with Jimmy a second ago that you have a representation here of last year with the NFC West of being able to very concretely, assuredly argue that you had the best division in football by a country mile, and that perhaps that was the best division performance, because the Cardinals didn't lose before they got before just the wheels fell off. They were 3/4 of the year. They were in pretty much almost all their games. You could make a very strong case that this was the best division in football over the last 15 to 20 years, as far as just performance-wise goes. I mean, 49ers didn't just get in the playoffs, right? Where you go, well, they're beat up. They beat the Eagles in Philadelphia. Rams won in Carolina, won in Chicago. So you had teams that didn't just get to the playoffs. You had every team in your division have playoff success in a division in addition to that. Then you had the team that won the division, had not only win the division once, purely and simply, coming all the way down to the final game of the season, but then they had to win the division twice in the playoffs. This is the ultimate of an example of saying, if there was a year where one team had to prove beyond all reasonable measure that they were the best within just purely their division alone, say nothing of the NFL, this was that year. And it's why when you look at the DVOA, and I think that's an accurate way of looking at it, because DVOA doesn't have any fight. No dog in this fight. They've gone back and looked at seasons going back to 1980, whatever, and measured these teams up as far as their cumulative value goes. And it gives you a little bit of a barometer, a measuring stick. I think they've got like Seattle like 12th all time, is the 12th all-time best team in the National Football League. So it's one where I definitely have been interesting to watch some of the point on this. I've wondered a little bit of this. Is this what happens when you've been riding high for so long and stuff happens and you don't want to kind of own up to the like, oh, maybe we got a couple chinks in the armor. A few cracks are starting to show up. And rather than think that, it's like you just kind of wave your hand away at it and you say it's something fluky occurred or something just random occurred and that won't happen again. We could play this 100 times and that'll happen one time out of 100 kind of stuff. But it has been we're having a lot of talk of it today here with, with Jimmy, but this has been a discussion point for Ram fans quite a bit that I've seen and in my chat and out there online. And I do wonder about it. I really do, about whether or not this is going to be a bit of a thing that still continues to carry over and it's still in the thought process a little bit as you go into next season. Like you still haven't been able to kind of quite punch that through the pipes. It's kind of still lodged in there, just kind of, just can't quite get it out of their system. The Snail. Thank you for the $2 donation, Snail. Better prospect, Milroe or Simpson? Very tough evaluation, Snail, I would say on this one. First, what I think makes it most tough for me is that I had third round grades on both players. So, they both are very similar in where they're going to be drafted at to me, or where they should have been drafted at. And so, while they're different skill sets as far as what they bring to the table, ultimately what it equals out to for me is very close. I think in Milroe, you have a guy that actually has upside. So when you talk about prospect to me and a quarterback and having a quarterback that you're looking to be your QB of the future, I think when you go to a place of low expectations for the quarterback, we're not going to look for a talent. No, give me a guy that can execute the offense. Give me a guy that can do some NFL things. Give me a little bit. He's got some processing. He throws with some anticipation, and maybe he doesn't have the best size. And okay, maybe he doesn't have much mobility or average mobility. That's to me where if I want to look at my prospect of the future, my QB of the future in my room, I want a guy with some talent. I want him with the things that I can't teach. I can teach the other stuff if I'm a coach worth my salt. I can't teach you to get a bigger arm. I can't teach you to be faster, more mobile. So with Milroe, he's far and away got a stronger arm. He's far and away more mobile. Simpson's got things that he does a little bit better than Milroe, I'd say. Throwing with anticipation, though Milroe showed a little bit of that at Alabama. It wasn't as common maybe as you'd see on the Simpson tape. Simpson's got a little bit more maybe of a just cleaner, easier delivery, which I think helps him on an accuracy front more. But it's not, this is where we come down to, that's why they're both kind of third round prospects, is there's some give and take here between the two of them from my perspective. But you're going for your quarterback of the future. It's like the Cardinals going for Carson Beck and having him sit there as kind of like until they go draft another QB next year, which will then just makes this third round pick a waste. You're going for a guy with no arm strength and limited mobility. What are we doing here? What is our hopeful ending conclusion of this upside wise for this particular player on our team if he has to play? Well, we'll get him out there and protect him at every turn as much as we can, rather than him like helping to elevate anything around him. It'll be like he is only going to, even if we can elevate him, I don't know if we're going to get a lot out of him. What are we doing? What is your goal here if that's what you're doing at that point? So it's a little, Simpson's a little bit of that to a lesser degree for me, and it makes it all that much more egregious that you did it in the top 15 picks. And I just think I don't think Les Snead liked this draft. I think that it fits the consensus for him as much as it did for everybody else looking and going, I don't like this draft. I can't trade back and get what I'd like to trade back, especially probably to try to get like 2027 capital to then maybe go get my quarterback of the future. So F it, we'll take the guy that's a flyer quarterback thing and a little bit of a lotto ticket situation now, and we'll see how that goes. It's a where's my deal here?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
See how it works out. It's a bold ass strategy, Snail. I'll say that though. Thomas, thank you for the $2 donation. So Seahawks are mid, winning 14 games plus. Where? Again, it's just you go. You can have a little bit of like some ground where you can start to make this argument on like 10 wins or something, or maybe even 11 you can get into. But when you get to 14 wins, it just gets hard to get to that place of the fluky. You guys fell out of bed drunk into that 14 wins. That's what happened. When has that ever been the case in NFL history we've ever said about any team? Like you get there, you've earned it. You've earned it. And especially when you played in the toughest division in football by far. By far. Thomas Cox, thank you for the $2 donation. Didn't the Ghost Boy beat the MVP twice? If I'm not mistaken, he did. If I'm not mistaken, he outplayed him in the conference championship. If I'm not mistaken, it wasn't his team carrying him in the conference championship, which literally every single Ram fan would have told me was going to be the necessity if the Seattle Seahawks were going to beat the Rams team in that conference championship. 100 out of 100 Ram fans would have told me that going into that game. And Sam, with that performance, ultimately should shut a lot of people up. Not just that performance, not the performance the last couple of years, not just then going and winning a Super Bowl, but doing that in that conference championship game against that Rams team that had his number a couple times in the last couple of years. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. We can talk about a lot of quarterbacks in this league who people may or may not think are better than Sam. I don't know how many other quarterbacks in that moment could match that beat for beat in that game for the throws that were required. Standing tall in the pocket, getting smashed in the face to deliver the ball on time, on the right spot, with some velocity. Yeah, Sam's got the goods, man. Very happy he's our quarterback, Thomas. Very, very happy. You rock, though, man. Thank you for your donations and support. Kevin McConnell, Jake is in love with the pick after taking 3 days of hating it. Yeah, it has been kind of, it was pretty wild to watch him kind of reverse course last week on the show. Hey, Kevin, how you doing, man? Yeah, you know about me, man. I'm really happy to be in a place where I can really laud what the organization's doing right now. But it's one of the parts about being, I think, honest as a content creator doing this, even when you're going to take some fire for sometimes getting negative, is, that when people then know that you're being positive, they know that it's truly what you believe. And you're not trying to gas them up or sell them on a story that's the untruth of it, that you really like, no, I'm going to tell you guys why this is going to be the case and why this is awesome. And, we've had to go through our less than awesome talks with certain, players, coaches and all that. But, I think it's why it's important to just always be truthful in doing this. I mean, right or wrong, certainly going to get plenty wrong, that's going to be undoubted, but just the truth. Truth is the most important thing, I think, in doing that. That's our only real currency in this. Jeffrey, Jerry Jones, great for content, bad for cowgirls. Amen. Bubba, Brando, if they both have productive year, who are more likely to resign next year, Okada or Thomas? Well, Drake Thomas is now on a 2-year deal, Bubba. So he signed a 2-year, $10 million deal. He's going to remain here. I think you're going to let Okada walk because I think unless you're looking to release Julian Love. But I would think that they're going to probably have one safety you're paying, and then you're going to kind of go a little bit more inexpensive at the other safety position from a general philosophy roster building standpoint. Mick says, I don't think Frazier gets enough respect for how beneficial he's been for Coach Mike. Having his experience was so valuable for our Super Bowl win. 100%, man. Leslie Frazier and what he's been able to bring to this team. And I don't think we're ever going to fully know until maybe the book's written down the line, Mick. But the youngest coach in the NFL doesn't get to a Super Bowl and doesn't have the instantaneous success that he's had without a guy in Frazier who can see up ahead of the corner, up ahead of the turns, up ahead of the corners, problems that are coming en route that Mike's not even aware of. And Mike has spoken to that. It was a great get for Mike, and just another part that shows how smart Macdonald was in coming here and know what you know and know what you don't know. And then bring the people in who can help you with what you don't know. And that's what he did with Frazier. Also a big benefit to a guy like McVay is why McVay had the instantaneous success he had, was that Wade Phillips came in with him to provide him that same kind of wizened older coach that could really help kind of speed up their learning curve. Jeffrey says, feels like the Raiders might wait until the deadline for a Crosby trade now. Think we'll have time on that one? Yeah, it might be that way there with this one. I'd rather be flying X-Wing. Hawks Nest, how long before the Cards become the off-season sneaky good pickup again? Oh, it's coming. It's a yearly event here. I'd rather be flying X-Wing, It's like predicting the Rams to win the Super Bowl from Vegas. It's like people are going to be like, they've done some, if you really look at their moves, and you really kind of think about what they've got building up there. I mean, they could come up and, it wouldn't be surprising. It's like, all right, guys, come on now. That schedule's pretty brutal though. Going over there and looking at that schedule for them, that's like, eesh. Even beyond just playing us. Don't the Hawks own the all-time record against the Rams? We do indeed, HHG. And again, we've kind of dominated this division since we've walked into it. Nobody's matched our division titles. Nobody's matched our Super Bowl appearances. More now Super Bowl wins than anybody in that time frame as well. Diego Bave can't join with his frosted tips. I saw the Rams parade, like 5 people showed up. Nobody likes the Rams, including their own. Kendricks, I could see Darnold having a better year this year than last year too, man. Can't undersell that confidence factor going up. It's kind of like that conference championship game and performance got buoyed in some way by that ability to solve the Rams in the second game. Like you could feel how one thing sort of bred to the other. And that, I can do this. I can do it against this team. They aren't that so big and bad. I can have some answers here. I got the ability to take them out. And then walking in that game from the jump, that throw to Rashid Shaheed, where he was able to kind of let that confidence roll over. And I feel like with Sam, he's as much of any quarterback in the sport in need or could be aided by having an injection of confidence put inside them Darnold's that kind of guy that strikes me that way because he's been so battered down through the years by so many, even through last year. All the ghost talk and bus talk and just all of it. Rob says everyone involved with the Rams have completely lost their mind. And he says, like our head coach says, 12 is 1, and we do not care. We only control what we do. That's it, man. We're just taking a page from what our coach talks about, man.
We did not care.
Don't need the respect. Don't need the accolades. Don't need the national media talking about us. Don't care. We're going to go out there and win, kick ass, take names, stack trophies, and all the rest is just a bunch of noise. Max Jimmy knows the Ron Burgundy secret that Brando would read anything on the prompter. It's not wrong. That's right, Abdi. We don't want to be the favorites. We'll prove everyone wrong. It's much more satisfying to watch them all eat their crow. I'm reading your guys' chat reaction to Jimmy. Oh, Lordy. Jimmy's unfortunately in here with my brother's in here today. Megan will be a little bit more forgiving. My brother's is gonna wield a little bit more of the band hammer when you step out of line with it. So, or the timeout at least. He still isn't using the word correctly. Oh, this is great. You guys are awesome. These are such funny messages. We're getting it this year, Nat. It's going to be another dogfight, man. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun battle again this year. All three of us just toe-to-toe swinging. I think we got the NFC West Roundtable tonight, Nad. I got to double check on that, but I believe we might be going tonight at 6. Yeah, Abdi, we spend a ton of money on our special teams. Like you say, it's not by luck that we've got the special teams unit we have. It's roster construction. Is that one of the 4 I can't speak, but it's at one of the points of priority here. And as far as, highest paid kicker, highest paid punter, you got 2 of the highest paid. And that way you get Rashid Shaheed. Part of why you're willing to give that $17 million per year is for what he brings as a kick punt return. And then you've got even a guy in Jadarian Price as a backup to do that if you needed to keep it vital and cooking and going right. And then you go to the gunners and the coverage unit. I mean, it's all the way around where it's guys on the roster that are here specifically because they are the special teams demons. And I don't think all teams take this approach. We played the Falcons, and that was another team this year that was one of the worst in special teams in the league. And you walked into that game going, man, this is going to show up at some point. I'm telling you. Shaheed houses it on the opening kickoff return to the second half. It's something that's like makes a difference. And woe to the team that decides that they don't have to, put as much into that and that they can just kind of ignore it and get by, because it will bite you on the ass. And there's that old famous story, of course, of the Chargers a couple of years ago where they had the number 1 defense and the number one offense, but because they had the worst special teams unit in the National Football League, they didn't even get to the Super Bowl. It matters. And especially with that kickoff coverage stuff now, that 35-yard line rule and all that, like, matters more than ever. Steven says Brandon this season is for the right to go back to back. Go Seahawks. Let's go, man. We fulfilled the revenge factor of the Patriots last year. Now let's fulfill the back-to-back. Let's cement this team as an all-time team with back-to-back seasons, man. And it would do just that. Abdi says, crazy, we spend all our money on special teams over our defense and offense, and it worked. We have the best special teams. Indeed. It's where I think Seattle saw the opportunity to make their team much better than their competition around them, as much because the competition's not taking anything close to those steps to build it in that same fashion. So the discrepancy between these teams you have playing is that much more, and it makes your investment that much better, because if it is more evened up as far as the special teams go, if we're both fifth, if I'm 15th and you're 16th, we play a football game, we're probably not going to see a lot of differentiation on the special teams as that being a big mitigating factor. But when there are the big swings, when I'm number 2 and you're number 28, when I'm number 3 and you're number 30, you're going to feel that over the course of the game. That ain't going to be just something that just kind of generally pops up. Please do hit that like button, sub up, as Industry Worth says. Thank you for that reminder, Industry Worth. Black Sun still living rent-free in Ram fans' heads. We will always have this season to hold over them. Go Hawks. It's fun, isn't it? I love it. The last season just continues to be the gift that keeps on giving. It really does. It's just wonderful. You couldn't ask for better. Just as you guys lost to Bryce Young, calm down. And hey, Brandon, just flex your ring on camera. I got a trophy coming here soon. I got one coming. A Green Substance. I'm a mod for Jake, and he never sits there and complains about the Seahawks. He literally only talks about the Rams. That's wild. I talk about all teams in this division, man. But I also got like 10 donations from a Rams fan. So you get donations, you're going to kind of talk about it. But we talk all teams here. Green Substance went from $6 billion to $12 billion after being handed a Super Bowl. Handed a Super Bowl? Boy, Ram fans, see, I'm telling you guys, this is what we're getting. Like, they're all collectively in the same mindset of it. We didn't win it. No, like Roger Goodell came to our house like Ed McMahon back in the day with a big check, but instead of a check, it was the Lombardi Trophy. And he's like, congratulations, we're just handing you the win. I mean, it's again, in the terms you guys, out of nowhere and for, like, just way over out of, he won 14 games the prior year with the Vikings, man. And whether or not it had a tough end or not. And again, a lot of you Rams fans didn't seem to understand the tough end with Darnold and the Vikings the prior year. Again, the outlook of it is just back to simplistic, right? So folks, this is again, the defining factor. Let me res it here again with another Ram fan, where again, we got a Ram fan operating within simplicity. So I always say, let's push back against simplicity. So whether Rams fans say what happened within the Viking-Rams game in the playoffs, what's the thing that they say happened? Sam collapsed. Sam saw ghosts. Sam was horrible. Sam was, he lost him that game. Dude, he was just awful. The Rams just had him completely scared for his life. Oh, it's not that my offensive line collapsed. It's not my defensive isn't playing particularly well. It's not my coach is not running any kind of balanced running attack. And my coach's game plan in general is awful because you got Sam doing a lot of these 5 to 7 step drops, which is putting him in harm's way against that offensive line, which is currently a sieve. No, instead it's just Sam was just completely awful and him bad. This is one of the defining things I see. And it's again where I go, you guys can see it that way, but you're wrong. And when you're looking at things so simplistically and you're not trying to understand the depths of it as to what makes something happen or doesn't make something happen, you're going to see it wrong. So Sam's done more over the last 2 years to prove himself as being legitimate. I'm not overstating my case and saying the guy's a top 5 quarterback. I'm making the same case I made throughout the whole round table all last year, Green Substance, when I said, and I had faith in Sam throughout last year, so I ain't Johnny come lately here. I didn't wait for him to win a Super Bowl when I signed up and said that Sam can go and get this done. Because I know, as a student of NFL history, that a top 10 quarterback play with the right supporting parts around you can take you to a Super Bowl win. And that's just what it did. And that's just what he was doing. So it's this him out of nowhere, him just flukily, just, you don't do this on 14 wins. You don't do those on 2 different teams in back-to-back years of 14 wins. Just out of nowhere, just out of nowhere, this thing happened. It's like, no, he's a former top 5 talent, put in horrible landing zones in the initial part of the league, finally getting an opportunity with a truly good couple of teams and showing you that he can go and get the job done. It ain't about the magical quarterback. It's about the collective. But as I say with this seems to be a bit of, I think, as I try to have discussions with Ram fans lately on this, especially just this stream alone, Green Substance, I seem to feel a very heavy pull by you Ram fans to the simplified. Let me take this complicated picture and take it down to a single word answer. When I'm trying to go, no, look at the whole book. You're trying to look at the one word. I'm saying, look at the book. But I don't think I'm getting much headway here. Good discussions today, though, guys. Standing in the pool. I like that analogy. Did they get the call right or wrong, Green Substance? Let's stop worrying about what call came from who and was the call correct or was it wrong? And if it's correct, then isn't that what we want the NFL to do, is get the calls right? Or are you actually pounding for the table for them to get the call wrong because then it's at the speed by which you'd like to see things run? I've never seen a fan base more angry and mad about a call that the officials got right. Like they're not getting it's this call came from this. Well, it just took this amount of time. Well, then who did this? Is it that the call's right or wrong? Well, it's right. I mean, they got the call right. Well, isn't that what every NFL fan hammers over and over for years? Is I don't care how long, get the call right. Isn't that what we've all been saying for years that we want to see? That there's nothing worse than getting the call wrong? But no. Then when it works against your favor, then suddenly like, no, the call needs to come in the first 20 seconds. And if the call doesn't come in by that time, then there needs to be no secondary call coming through. Okay. And take today, Brandon, any chance you can do the Dr. Evil voice mentioning $5 million? I'm getting more fired up about the Hawks each day. Hope you are too. Hell yeah, man. Ram fans got me ready for some Monday night action right now. F your Australia trip. Come on in here on Wednesday. We'll take care of you and the Bears back to back.
We did not care.
Oh. Industry, thank you for the 6 months as a Hawks Nest member. Says, I checked the page and there is a roundtable tonight. There we go. Thank you for the updated industry. So 6 o'clock, NFC West roundtable. We'll be over there today and chopping it up with the boys. So do check that out. It's a separate channel we do every Tuesday here at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Thomas Cox, thank you for the $2 donation. Kay Adams saying people are overlooking Seattle. Yeah, it's we're dogging. I'm dogging a little bit on some of the Rams fans with some of the stuff today a little bit, and look, we're facing it directly, so for good reason. But this is also a little bit of a national outlook, right? This is a little bit of the pundit outlook, and it's nothing new under the sun, and I don't care about it, but it is what it is. We faced it last year. We face it usually on a yearly basis. What's interesting about facing it this year versus last year is you could understand why people were short selling a little bit of the team because Mike's still only in his second year as a head coach, and you're still in a very strong division with still very good teams in your division. But when you've won the Super Bowl, pretty handedly, when you won your division twice over, you would think that there'd be a little bit more respect tossed your way in the respect to people like going, okay, they're pretty legitimate to have accomplished that. But it is still a little bit of the, we forget about you guys up there, Southern Alaska thing. And there's just more bigger market teams that are, you talk about the LA, talk about a Dallas, talk about a Philly, go to any of these other teams. And it's maybe more exciting to talk about, but I do think I think that we are getting overlooked again this year. And I think that's a good thing. I like being in this role. I think that we operate from our strongest as kind of that sub underdog. Kieran, if we don't take a step back, I'll be the first one in the chat to say I'm wrong, and I'll buy Brandon a 6-pack. I just can't imagine the whole league shits the bed this year the same way. Yeah, I think that the bed thing was as much the AFC to me than it was the NFC. You certainly had a couple of teams in the NFC that maybe came down to earth a little bit, but the Eagles were still very strong. We knew the NFC South was going to be fairly weak, and I don't think it's gotten supremely more strong this offseason necessarily. Packers, Bears, Lions, and them kind of all duking it out in that division with the Vikings taking the step back a bit. They were still a pretty strong division to go through there. So, is the NFC going to be stronger this year? Maybe. Are once the AJ Brown trade culminates for the Eagles, are they better this year? They kind of feel about the same. They kind of feel about 11-win team. Can kind of feast on two bad teams in your division kind of team. NFC South, like I said, I still think they're still in a position of not feeling like the strongest. I know the Saints are kind of becoming a team, people are like, ooh, and that's as much because of the Tyler Show. But the rest of that team is not exactly built up really strong. They don't have a good defense. They do have a decent offensive line, decent offense in particular to get it done there, but they're going to have to score a bazillion points to win every week. And sure, I think that the NFC North will still be strong again next year, but is Detroit going to be the strongest they've been the past 3 or 4 years this next year? No. The Bears, okay, everybody thinks they take a step forward this year, but you lost Dahlman and DJ Moore. I don't know if, Kobe Bryant oversees that, especially because Brisker was on top of this too. Are they certainly a better team next year than they were this last year? I don't know if on paper they are. I think you make the argument they're a little bit less, a little bit weaker. Especially got like a Joe Thuney getting kind of up there at left guard for them. And now the Packers are dangerous, and the Micah Parsons injury helped you. I think that's as much as anything that if that doesn't happen, does that become much more of a battle for you between those two teams? Yeah, but they've also been a team that Sean Gary, Ryan Clark, out the door. Have you found those replacements there? Yeah, Micah Parsons brings what he brings, but you've lost some stuff there too in addition to it. So we'll see, man. I think that we also are going to be a stronger team next year. So wherever the schedule may lie, and I don't think we're necessarily going to win 14 games next year because I don't think the schedule is going to be as easy, but I think certainly 12 to 13 wins and being on top of this division again is certainly feasible because I think we're going to be stronger as a team. I think the third youngest roster in football getting another year older next year. I think that there's a lot of reasons there's naturally improvement. Call it 4 or 5% improvement just off the natural youth getting a little bit older and heading to that physical prime a little bit closer. I'd put that at least there. But we'll see how it shakes out. It's always hard to predict where the NFL will be at strength-wise year to year out and conferences and all that, and injuries factor in on this certainly too. You get injuries across a conference and suddenly it changes the spectrum considerably. DC is with me. He says the Hawks defense is going to be even better next season, which is scary. Can't wait to watch the Hawks ball up. Let's go. What's up, War Chief? Aloha. Why is he only mentioned week 16, Brandon, when we played the third time and Sam Darnold cooked that defense and special teams, won us the game again, and no referee got involved. We call that an inconvenient truth for him a little bit. So just, if you ignore it, then it didn't happen, you know? If you ignore a fact in the middle of a forest, did the tree fall? War Chief, I like me some of the Fowler signing too, man. $5 million. That's peanuts. Peanuts. Jimmy got his mom. That's right, Abdi. We pay Michael Dixon and Jason Myers big money. You know, we pay for what we get back in return, but it's a point of emphasis. It's on purpose. Keep putting quarters in. What if Ty Simpson becomes a franchise quarterback? Oh, I mean, anything's possible. And, quarterback position is still one that, coming out of college, still has a high level of variance. And even the guys that are experts at this can tend to get it kind of wrong. And so, I'm certainly open to the possibility of being wrong on this one. Absolutely. And he is going to a team in the Rams that if tomorrow he took over, he's got a pretty good offense, and he's got a good defense, and he's got a good special team, or a good head coach to guide him and allow him for a good chance for success. So it is possible there. I just do think I come back to the fact that there are some limitations physically. I think the thing that I've tried to use as a kind of an example of this Oiler Titan is to think of this like Madden. And you have a quarterback and you have all of these ratings they put in Madden for the quarterback, right? Throw on the run, arm power, right? You put all of these things, throw a touch, mobility, initial short area burst quickness, like, Brock Purdy, for instance, not the biggest arm, but some really good, like 1-5-2, 10-yard split, short area quickness to get away from pass rushers in a phone booth. If I took Ty Simpson like a Madden rating and looked at all of his ratings, he'd have nothing above 90. Nothing above 90. And I think I kind of try to draw this to that in saying, I want to go get a quarterback in the first round, especially in the upper top 15 of the first round. Don't I want there to be a 90 somewhere on that skill tree? I want something to be a little bit on the plus angle of it rather than it being a bunch of 88s up and down the line. 88, 87, 88, 87, 86, 88, 89, 82. It's kind of a little bit like that with Ty. So it's possible it's just as much about why you make quarterback picks in that spot. And I think a big driver here, and kind of what I'm intimating here, Oiler Titan, is that the pick was driven not as much by his talent, but by the lack of quality through the rest of this class, especially at the top of the first round. And then by the Rams knowing that sooner or later they're going to need to find a quarterback here for Stafford, an heir apparent. And so it's kind of like one melds into the other, but neither of those two things have anything to really do with the individual talent of Ty Simpson. It becomes outside factors draw and push the pick to happen. Abdi, man, really, really call special teams a fluke when everyone knows we spend majority of our money on special teams. Look at even these spring free agency signings. We mostly resign special teamers, still believe in phase 3. That's right. You're on it, Abdi. And yeah, you mentioned about it, even in our free agent period and who we brought back in here and guys that you've retained. Be it a Jake Bobo on the price you brought him back in on. It's 2-year contract. It's as much as what he brings as far as the special teams role goes. So it's not something that's just this like, well, okay, you buy your kicker, you bought your punter. No, it is that we look at our special teams as far as like building it up to be the strongest in football on purpose through investment, not just on hope. Daniel says, if Hawks are mid but beat the Rams twice, does that make them trash? Ooh, Daniel using some good logic here. Addicted says Brandon Nelson, second half of BNB, did show pointing out the Cardinals have the toughest, not weakest 2026 schedule. Rams in denial. 49ers draft Stribling, number 1. I do like him, but not number 1. 2027, yes. I'm with you on that one, man. It's just been underwhelming through the rest of this division, and what is a very off season for them, that is. And what is a very hyper competitive division. Addicted 2026 for 2027 was a Freudian slip. Whether I'd be more afraid of the Cardinals with Carson Beck. Now there is a quarterback with a future. Yeah, I don't like either of them, man. And they both represent the same thing to me, which is just low hope for your quarterback position. You know what I mean? Very low expectation and hope. Kenner says Sean McVay got bogged by Mike Macdonald. Mike's just ore farming. Orchie says, I'm calling it now. Bud Clark, defensive rookie of the year. He's coming into the perfect situation with the best defense in the league, and he's got the right attitude. It's possible, man. And, you take away the ball. That's one way to get a stat up there that can launch you ahead of other people as far as looking at you as a defensive rookie of the year. And he's a guy that long-term can be a guy that gets in this league at whatever he does around the rest of his game can be a 5, 6, 7 year kind of guy as far as interceptions go, because he's got that sort of ball hawk, ball skills, just upper end all the way along. He's great at tracking the ball. He can catch the ball away from his body. He's aggressive and instinctive in coverage. All of the little ingredients you need to be that guy that can actually take away the ball at the next level. And sees the field, he's going to see it a decent amount. I think, especially if you're able to play from ahead like you were last year to a considerable degree, and he can come in with those kind of backbreaker plays, those picks at those key moments, and stack about 4 or 5 of those up, man, and you got it, Jay Klobb says, Brando, is it true Riley Mills was changed from defensive tackle chart over to defensive end? No. I mean, it is true that you're seeing it on ESPN showing up under the depth chart as to him listed as a defensive end on ESPN. If you notice, though, there's actually kind of a key tell there, because they also have Byron Murphy ahead of Riley Mills listed as a right defensive end. They also have Leonard Williams listed as a defensive end. So ESPN's kind of putting this together like it's a base 3-4 defense. And so we have to kind of fit the guys in on the place where they'd be with a 3-4. So it's the way they itemize this is they go nose tackle, LDE and RDE, left defensive end, right defensive end. But the defensive ends are in, by their measure, sort of old school 3-4 alignment. So tighter alignment. They're not out there on the edge like a normal defensive end, but they're inside like you'd have on 3-4 looks in prior years, where essentially you'd have like the nose tackle be over the center, and then your guards are kind of in sort of 3-tech or 3-eye sort of kind of looks and how you align them. So same thing here. It just looks weird on the site because they don't know how to identify 3-4 teams anymore, because nobody really runs the 3-4 in that same kind of pure fashion. Thomas says, I'm sorry, even Jake admitted in the NFC Championship that Seattle was the better team. It shows how much a joke most fans' bases are. How many times did Rams have a chance to put Seattle away? Yeah, and I know Jake gets some heat all the time for the homer stuff, but Jake's owned up to a lot of things in that way. And I don't think that he was making as much of those excuses himself. I think that he was also one of the only guys in the round table throughout the course of the year that was coming over to the Sam Darnold side of things and seeing my point on that before it got to the point where it was impossible to ignore and where you had to give him his flowers. Yeah, they're going to have Mills, and Mills is going to play everything from 5 to 3 to 2 to nose tackle. Like they even had him in nose tackle last year. So he'll be moved all around, but he won't eat up any snaps out of the edge. Ty Dimson. Just a reminder, if you got a note for me, BB Brando, Hawks Nest. Thomas Brando, it's funny because even if Seattle doesn't make it this year, doesn't mean Seattle won't be back. Yeah, we're at the beginning of our Super Bowl window. We just happened to win a Super Bowl just as the window got flung open, but that doesn't mean that the window doesn't still remain. Dogzilla Brando, is Fowler worth it because he has gas in the tank? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's for $5 million, Dogzilla. You don't need a lot of gas in the tank at that point. He'll get you a couple miles, and that's all you may be going to need. So great addition. The price is right. Fourth edge here. Upgrade over what you added Mafe to me. A more efficient rusher. A guy that can get some quick wins from time to time. Doesn't need an hour and a half to get to the quarterback. So I think that marginal on the upgrade point, but an upgrade nonetheless. And one you didn't have to pay $20 million for. I had heard the Puka Nacua nickname laughing out loud. It's forever Puka Nacua. Oh. Bite marks are tough, man. That might as well be fingerprints at times. Thomas says, B, I will say this, even if Seattle didn't get that 2-point conversion, Seattle still had over 4 minutes in the game to take the lead. It wasn't like Seattle took the lead and still they scored before losing. Agreed. You had other opportunities with it. It's why concentrating on just one given play is kind of silly. Because you can look at other areas of the game that could be adjusted. And so you had other opportunities there. It didn't have to be that was all on that. They're just kind of putting it together by how the game played out to get to overtime. So, they're going, Thomas, well, then it went to overtime. And if you just took the 2-point away, and that's why it's kind of funny math to try to put together. Doesn't quite add up. IG, hey, B, the 2027 is living up to the hype so far. Let's go. That's right. Misfit brings up another part. This is a little bit like what I'm trying to talk about. Like Misfit brings up here. We shut down the Rams 4 straight possessions in that second game in the fourth quarter. It's also like where Ram fans don't own up to that. It's like, well, why did your offense go cold at that point? Did you get conservative? Did you just start to try to lean on the lead maybe a little bit too much? Well, then wouldn't that be part of the failure of you losing that game beyond just the 2-point conversion, especially to Misfit's point? Because we're talking about now 4 straight possessions with the game on the line in the fourth quarter. We're connecting a thread of a narrative that goes between a variety of different possessions, which now takes up more of a multitude of plays, which swings more weight on actually deciding the game being won or lost. Exactly. Stu says metacognition's having awareness for what you don't know. Let's go. Gotta know what we don't know. Ben Miller got a lesson on how valuable the ball is to Mike Macdonald and lost snaps. Seahawks running backs had 0 turnovers. That's right. Thomas says, that's what 100% bugs me. It's like the Rams didn't get a chance to win. Shoot, Ghost Boy, from their perspective, took it down the field, won it, and got the 2-point conversion with Saubert. Yeah, and they could have chosen to go for 2 at that time, and but that's a little bit of where they were in that time, is they leaned off the gas, right? And Ernest Jones talked about in that game at the time where he spoke to how the Rams were acting like they had already won the game in the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter. And it's like, that's football for you. And it's the tough part about that sort of any given Sunday thing where you have that bad team that plays up against that good team, but the good team lays an egg and they get beat. And it's because you have to bring a level of intensity, play in and play out, week in and week out. And if you lean off that stick a little bit, the other team will take advantage. And I think that even that is a much more accurate representation of that game and what went down in that game than some of this other stuff that gets talked about, or the hyper concentration on the 2-point conversion. You go, no, you guys kind of decided you had the win. You thought you were going to be able to just do the bare minimum enough. A lot like this offseason by the Rams, by the way. This mentality is kind of permeated into your offseason. Because like that game where you were like, well, we did enough. Hayes in the barn. We're finished. We're going to go get some iced tea, call it a day. You guys don't have enough time. What's going on? They do have enough time. Holy shit. Kind of like this offseason. We've got enough on the roster. We should have won last year. It was all fluky. It was all luck. We'll add a corner. We'll give them some money and we'll call it good. We don't even need our draft. Okay. We'll see. Kendrick is hanging the banner. We are favorites by Vegas to win the Super Bowl. Really? Interesting. I thought I'd heard the Rams were going to be put up there again. Uber says, anyone with knowledge and honesty would say the young with continuity have an ascending path. Wow, great way of putting it, Uber. Much better than how I put it, frankly. But this is exactly what I look at it as, where when you have that young of roster that gets to that ultimate of a success, which continues to keep the continuity, you lose a safety starter and you lose a running back. Those aren't exactly prime positions in the NFL, and you can replace them. And that not only are you returning almost all of the rest of the starters across the board, but then all of the rest of the depth across the board. It's not just the 5 offensive line starters. It's all of the backups to the offensive line starters. It's not just your 2 tight ends. It's the 3 guys running behind them. It's not just JSN and Cooper Kupp. It's the Shaheed and Bobo and Horton behind him. You've got depth with that youth, with the ultimate success that they've reached. I think there's a natural reason to believe that team will get a little bit, but even incrementally better. Just naturally. Comcast ain't going to have NFL Network, Brian? What the hell is that about? Congrats on moving back to Seattle, Rob. Let's go. Yeah, it's sort of hard right now in the ownership thing. We're hearing a lot of rumors being thrown about who would be the next owner. Ballmer seems to be the still odds-on favorite here, but we're hearing a lot of interesting names being thrown onto the board. Though a lot of them are kind of denying it very quickly. Yeah, Gibson, solid 1-year signing, huh? Good depth. Reinforces the edge room really nicely, where you got your starters and you got your true good backups. You can sustain some injury. MD Ram fans are funny with all the excuses. The Super Bowl just landed in Seattle out of nowhere. The beautiful Pacific Northwest. Yeah, Clark's got some good tape, man. And that nose for the ball, those instincts, some of that stuff was almost you can't train it or teach it. You got it or you don't. And he's got it in droves, that ability to just know when to pull the trigger, know when to feel the coverage, and he's got the aggressiveness to then drive on routes to be in a position to go make that pick. This is no one overlooks Kay Adams. I think the Ram fans are upset because from their perspective, they got beat by the team from South Alaska. Damn, Brandon, I'm on the same wavelength. I'm just super so hyper today. Coke and Brando, can you break down Ty Simpson's game? What are his pros and his cons? Is he a legitimate prospect? How will he develop as a Rams as opposed to other teams? Well, he's a guy, the thing that you want with quarterbacks coming out here like this is you would like there to be a lot of starts, and he doesn't have a lot of starts under his belt. So this was the first year that he kind of started, and unfortunately he got injured halfway into the year, and that doesn't help you a lot with knowing whether or not, for a guy that's not the biggest of guys. I mean, he is kind of a little bit on the smaller side. He's not exactly put stoutly together, You go back to a guy like JJ McCarthy, for instance, where you get these guys that are kind of 6'1", 200, 210 pounds, maybe probably 205 pounds on a good day. Very slight for the position, man. Very slight for the position. He's got a fine arm. I wouldn't say it's a good arm for a prospect. I wouldn't say it's like a lightning kind of arm. It's fine. I don't think that there's every NFL throw he can make on a windy day. I don't. I think there's, in a lot of ways, this is probably a guy that's, is best suited to going and playing in a dome. You know, if you had to ask him to play outside in Buffalo all the time, it would not be good for him. He's a guy that's done some NFL things. He has, you know, Grubb came back to Alabama and definitely used some NFL kind of stuff and coming back and when he wanted to bring to Alabama's offense. So you get a little bit of that in him, and ability to process and read things through the defense and be able to, they even did some under center stuff, I think, at times with him there. So there's a little bit of that to his game. Throws with a lot of anticipation, has good accuracy. Maybe the best skill that he has stand out for him would be accuracy and ball placement. I think he's still a guy that needs way more maturation and time. There's a lot of times where he'll sit in the pocket, hold on the ball, and take forever to kind of get through his reads and then take a bad sack. I don't think he has a lot of short area quickness. I think he's average speed-wise. You know, he's probably like a 4.6, 4.65, 40 guy. And he's not a fast 10-yard split guy either. So, you know, he's not really going to do anything dynamically with his legs. So, you know, 6'1", limited size, limited kind of girth to him to be able to take a 350-pound guy landing on him. I think injuries are going to be a problem, especially considering he got injured in his only year of starting in college. So it's kind of where it's at. He's going to have to be supremely a high-level processor who throws with supreme anticipation. He's going to have to kind of try to play the game like Burrow, but he doesn't even have Burrow's arm strength, much less Burrow's size to see the field, to make those kind of quick anticipatory throws. Abdi, why Rams fans only mention Week 16 when we beat the twice, including the NFC Championship game, Brandon? Yeah, it goes against their narrative, you know. Sam's performance, how much you were up on them as a team, it counter drifts to the other two games supremely so, and then it defeats their argument. So if they just ignore it, then I guess they act like it don't happen. To their mind, it didn't. Lawrence, the Super Bowl winner will be from the NFC West, barring injuries. Probably the two front runners are Rams and Seahawks for sure, to your point. Well, they're Titan. What happened to the edge that the Pack took high out of Iowa a couple of years back? Just didn't really develop for them. Van Ness, I think. All right. I believe that's who they grabbed, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he's been actually okay for them as a run defender. So he's been, you know, he's been okay for them as a run defender, but as a pass rusher, he's kind of not going to give you a lot. And he's a guy that works off a lot of power. There's not a lot of dip there. There's not a lot of bend there. You know, he's kind of your high motor, big edge, you know. So just hasn't come along. He hasn't been a bad player. He gives him solidity all around, but he's just not particularly dynamic. He's not going to give you a high level efficiency as a pass rush. He'll be a slow pass rush win guy, high motor type dude. Brandon, your discussion with Jimmy kind of made me think of you as a fisherman, slowly bringing the fish into the boat. Brian says, better analogy, if the Rams fell down in the stadium and you weren't there to hear it, would it make a noise? No, but you'd sure hear it from their Homer fans. A good time in that game tomorrow, man. We're going to do a Mariners game here at some point on the channel this summer too. Get a couple of them in. Thomas Cox, thank you for the $2 donation. He says the Seahawks are eyeing Cam Jordan per Corbin Smith. So heard a little bit at the top of this. Don't be mean. Pumpkin's so mean sometimes. So Abdi was talking about this at the start of the show, Thomas, and so good here. We've got some corroborated stuff going on with this now that Seattle was reportedly not done in the market. They were not done reportedly going out there and seeing if they could kind of shake the trees a little bit to finding another edge on top of this, that they were not finished up. And Cam Jordan has been somewhat linked to Seattle here a little bit prior to today in this. How cool would it be they'll be able to bring in both Cam Jordan and Dante Fowler both to add to the stack. And boy, look at that edge group. Look at that defensive line then. That would be wondrous. Wondrous. Thank you for the update, though, Thomas, and the donations support today. So maybe we get a little Cam Jordan news here soon, too. Get Fowler knocked out, lock back in on Jordan. Brian says B has changed to defensive end on the Seahawks roster page too. We'll see on this. I don't think he's getting moved back out to defensive end, but maybe there's something at play here. I do think though that they're going to keep him in at defensive tackle. I think they were going to be doing the transition to defensive end. They'd have him to start losing that weight last year as he was coming back from that injury, being like, all right, we're going to move you back out to edge and, take some of the weight and strain off that knee. But even back in like training camp on the field, I could see that at like the scrimmage game, he was easily over 300 pounds. He was 305 at that time, 310. So I don't think they're putting him back out over the edge, but we'll see maybe. Thomas B, how and who crapped the bed in the NFL? Teams improve, maybe not by record-wise, but when a young team wins a Super Bowl, usually they win another. It's true enough, man. Or they at least get back there again, as our Seahawks did as a really young winning roster in 13, to your point. Gibson Clark at TCU was the best player on the field and a leader, and it was impressive. 3-time captain, man. Played a lot of football. He knows what's going on in the field. He's going to have the fluidity of playing free safety, strong safety, slot, move them all over the field, the perfect kind of puzzle piece for Mike Macdonald defense on the back end, ball skills. He's going to be a good player. Manny's on it as well. Following up with Thomas's, says, I saw that they are still looking at other edge options. Cam Jordan, Clowney, that rotation about to be nasty. Nasty. Just filled with a bunch of dogs. Antoine B, what's Jerry Jones has to say on your assessment of this championship mindset as an owner and how he runs his facilities? I don't get it. All right. I really don't get it, Antoine. Maybe you can explain it to me. All right. Explain it to America's team's best owner. Okay. We do enough. All right. We draft, we pay, we extend. Now, sometimes we franchise 10. Sometimes we got to chisel a few guys. All right. That's the cowboy way. We're kind of chiselers down here. That's what we got to do. You build your roster strongest doing some chiseling. That's what we do. All right. But you Seahawks up there, science, medical, care, chasing edges. Why all that work? Don't you guys got stuff to do? Don't you got things you can go do for fun? I like cigars. I like time on the lake. No, you're out there trying to win it every moment. We're supposed to win because we're America's team. Haven't you got the memo? As I sneeze. Jerry making me sneeze over here. Your Seahawks making me sneeze. I can't even breathe, Antoine. Who's got that kind of time to do all that stuff? And then now you're doing void years, and why are you making us do that? I get less profit now because you Seattle Seahawks are spending so much JD money. You need to stop. You won enough. 4 Super Bowls, 20 years. That's enough. My Cowboys haven't been back for a long time. It's our turn now. It's about turn. It ain't about winning. It ain't about being the best. It's about whose turn it is. Takes me back to my fraternity days. When they said, Jerry, it's your turn now. Go on in there. I ain't going to tell you what I did, but it was my turn. Now's my turn. Now's my turn. My team's turn. Yes, sir, Manny. Does look like we are looking for one more edge, and I love to hear it. Got this schedule release coming here in another week and a half or so? Something like that. Abdi says $5 million, 1-year deal. Just being a rotation sub, smart business vision by the best general manager in the league, Schneider. Amen. That's value, baby. Dick to Brandon, any thoughts on what percentage of snaps Byron Murphy gets at the edge this year? Hope he never takes another snap at a zero tech again. I don't think that it's going to be widely more differentiated than what it's been because the collective of the defensive performance has been so good. You keep kind of leaning into it, I think, and saying why break what's working ultimately. And there still is the log gem at 3 tech. And though he has the ability to play some of that nose tackle, I don't think you're going to ask Riley Mills to play a tremendous amount of those snaps. So it kind of just becomes a numbers game where you just have so many 3 techs, and he's the guy that can give you actually dominant form at the nose tackle position, that he just ends up falling back into that spot again. Kind of is what it is at that point, and probably will be until, Jaron Reed and Leonard Williams move on. Did Puka bite people in rehab? No, it's the incident that took him to rehab. So it was the lightning moment that occurred where he got a little bit blasted and got in an argument with a woman and might have or might have not have gone full Puka Nacua. That's just when he gets into his super power mode, It becomes his super self. Thomas says, B, all I'm saying is Rams fans better hope Simpson is franchised because I'm doubtful that McVay wants Simpson, and I could see Snead and McVay breaking up because of that, especially if Stafford regresses. Yeah, well, I go back to the whole reason that you moved off of Goff. Goff has skill. Goff has ability. Goff can win you games. Goff can throw for 4,000 yards a year. But McVay determined, I need more than this. To go get a Super Bowl, I need more than this thing. This thing that's good, but with limitations. You go to Stafford, but no limitations. You get to the Super Bowl. You win a Super Bowl. Seems like there's a lesson to be learned within that. Now you're going back into an even worse bucket where Jared Goff, to me, is much more talented than what you have, or not much more talented, but more talented than what you get from a Ty Simpson. Better arm, bigger size. I mean, Simpson, maybe he's got a little more mobility, but let's not overstate it. Yeah, they put their chips in this, and that's the problem with this too, is that you come back to next year, and if you come to find Simpson's kind of not the guy, you've already put your first round draft capital into this. You have to kind of ride it out and see where it shakes to at that point. Not a great situation. Not great. Uber says not just the players, it's the coaching staff, and what isn't talked about as is the addition of the coaches, both pro and college. True. You have had a lot of kind of quiet talent into the coaching ranks this offseason. A lot of caught up on Kubiak leaving, but you've been able to bring in some very interesting guys. Jordan, I'm still under the impression the Rams needed more help for their pass rush and not their secondary. I don't think McDuffie is as big an upgrade at first glance. I don't either, especially talking about having to then immediately pay him $30 million per year. And you look at the pass rush and it's like, well, you've got Young and Verse out there on the outside. But then now you're going to have to go to the kid they took out of Michigan's kind of the next guy off the bench. They don't exactly have the same kind of four stack that we have in place. Their defensive tackle rotation is fairly okay to nice. And Puna really came in there and solidified their run defense, and Kobe Turner's a problem. But Braden Fisk is absolutely a nightmare against the run. Like if he's in there and you're on a play where you're not in a down distance like 3rd and 13, you should be audibling every time to run right at Braden Fisk because he's about to go on a ride up the football field and you're going to have a big old hole where he once was at. So I would say, there is some still structural weakness there from a depth standpoint at the very least when it comes to that Rams defensive line. Part of that just make it good enough thing where you'd think they would do a little bit more given their track record of history for the position. Problem now is that they've kind of run out of money. Yeah, I think DeMarcus Lawrence is almost all but sure to playing this year, Kendricks. Get the band back together. Thank you, Addicted. Addicted says, Brandon, please do more Jerry Jones on the roundtable each week. You really nail it. I'll try to include a little more there. I just don't. It's too much work. Too much damn work. Oh, you see how people got me working my ass off out here. Watching college prospects in the middle of the night. I'm old and I'm tired. Steven should be doing this now. Daddy, I'm already looking at all the tape I can. I'm trying, Daddy. Shut up, boy. Have another burrito. Yeah, Marshawn with a little more. I like the split the load thing with running backs now, Uber, for the reasons you mentioned. I think that there's just a freshness you create. And ultimately, there's a view of this of, yeah, you want your running back productive and churn out yards, but you also want to be like getting to the playoffs, in the playoffs with your running back in as healthy a shape as you can have him to be at his best when you need him most. And I think there's a bit of that that's built into that plan when you take that approach. DK says, Cards have clearly given up. Let's go and raid them. What would it take to get Harrison Jr., Sweat, who wants out, and Buddha, first and a second, and a future second for all of them? All three? Harrison's value is not going to be great at this point, man. I think that they struggle to get a third for him. You could probably get probably a third, 2 or a 3 for Sweat. If it's a late 2, maybe. Buddha's not going to cost a lot because he's getting a little bit advanced age. I don't think we've got really the spot for Buddha here at this point. But you know how it goes to DK, where the teams within their own division don't tend to trade with teams within their own division, especially players. But you never know. I do think you're right. The Cards have basically kind of punted on this season. And I think that's the worst of things for the Cards to do this year. There was no reality of where they were going to win this division this year, no matter what they did this offseason. So just as soon as just kind of call it a day, keep it moving, get to 2027, and hopefully have your team a little bit better rounded out to be able to then now take the money that you're going to have back in tow and really be able to go out there and make some moves. Brian says being a player of the Cowboys like being a Disney character at Disneyland. That's true. It always still blows me away that they actually have tours. These players are working out and they have tours through the facilities as these players are trying to work out. It's like you talk about unnecessary distraction. We were since 2010, only 2 quarterbacks won multiple Super Bowls. Of only 3 were first round and only 3 were by quarterback in his first contract. It's good data, man. It's what every team seems to be chasing, Uber, to your point, but hard to find. Also to your point. Jordan says, didn't think Cam Jordan fit the scheme, as we usually have guys standing up on the edge. He's standing up a little bit, quite a bit in his career. He's done that. He's done that a lot. You could make the argument with him, maybe he's a better hand in the dirt guy, but he has standed up quite a bit. And he does dimensionally wise with his length and his size, power, ability does fit to the defense in that way. It'd be interesting, man. He's been a very productive player for a very long period of time. I know he's old, but when you're talking about bringing him in as your 5th edge, hard to be mad about that. You know he ain't going to cost a lot. Probably comes here like Fowler, taking a little bit less money. I mean, he's already earned his paycheck, so you ain't bringing him in to be the highest paid. He's going to come in, take a little bit of a discount. So both with Fowler and him, you've got a little bit of a quasi Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill situation. You're not getting kind of the players they were at the time of their career that you got them, but you're getting 2 really nice players for a very cheap price, basically. Fred Palmer, hey, Brando, thanks for being you. Go Hawks. Thank you, Fred. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for everybody watching today. Very, very kind of you. We'll probably put a bit of a wrap up on this. I got an hour before we're at the round table here, so I need to go get a little bit of food and a little bit more coffee, get prepped up for that. You know, it's going to be another fight in there today. No, it'll be good. Brent, I thought Harrison had passed on. Only Ringo and Paul are left. Mine is grown. Never mind. Yeah, Cup. We're going to do a show on Cup this off season here in the next 2 months, looking at him a little bit, Uber, because he's one of those discussion points that's existed even within the fan base, certainly nationally, on their outlook of him as a player. And I think that he's really underappreciated here, where he gets looked at as this guy is kind of like, you know, a leader in the locker room, and it's like a coach on the field, but it's actually still a very good player. And one of those guys that definitely got hindered by your low volume passing approach last season and the high amount of the pie of that volume approach that you did use that went to JSN. And then no receiver on this offense was going to get into a hyper touch mode or have their statistical season look great by that measure. But he was efficient, productive. He was good in the playoffs. He blocks his ass off, gives you all that coach in the locker room stuff. But I'm very happy he's here too, man. Hell of an addition to this team. Hell of an addition. JL says, I can't believe the Lambs thought they'd be better without Cup in the building. I know, kind of interesting there. They sort of didn't understand what he brought value-wise in that way a little bit. I mean, you certainly think that maybe when you see what Puka's done and JSN's done, that you can't help but think that there's a little bit of Cup's aiding hand in that development in some way with both those two guys to a degree. But the Rams got cute, and they kind of did him dirty, it sounds like, a little bit too, sort of trying to force him to retire or trying to talk him into retire when he still wanted to play. And it's like, why are you guys doing that? Why is that a thing? The guy still wants to play. Pay him or don't. Don't sit there and try to, it's really best for your career and your legacy at this point, Cooper, if you just call it a day, It's really what you should do. Fast forward a year later, he's won a Super Bowl. It's like, it's not a good look for your organization, people. Thank you, Bubba. Appreciate you, man. Very kind of you. Thank you for all your support here to the channel as well. We will go ahead and put a bit of a button on this at this point. I really appreciate you guys watching today. We might have some more further live streams here this week if Cam Jordan does get signed, as there are some rumors here that maybe he's going to be maybe the next guy en route, which would be very cool. I've got my clips channel rolling over here, the Hawks Nest clips channel, full run. We're trying to get a couple clips a day posted up on that channel. These are going to be clips of these live stream shows over there, so do check it out if you get a chance on that side of things. We've got the NFC West Roundtable coming back in an hour. It's a separate channel here from the Hawks Nest, so you can find us here on YouTube. It's the NFC West Roundtable, chopping up with the boys on the roundtable here and seeing what's what on that side of it. Certainly talking a little bit more about this Fowler signing. And I'm hard at work as well on the second episode of the Kubiak. So we'll be getting the second Kubiak episode out here, hopefully within the next couple of days. I'm knee deep in editing and filming and all that. So we're making progress, getting there bit by bit. You guys are going to really enjoy this one. The second one's going to be a little bit longer. So it takes me a little bit more time to kind of get it out, because it'll probably be almost damn near 17, 18 minutes on the second episode. It's going to be a little bit of a beast on that. But thank you guys for checking out that year of Kubiak. Want to do more of that kind of content here on the channel, and really appreciate you watching. If you can for me today, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're not already subbed up, it's free to you on both accounts, and it does have an impact on both accounts. You sub, you hit the like button, it tells YouTube, show this guy's video to other people looking for Hawk content. And that, my friends, is how we grow on this platform. You guys were amazing today as ever. And whether it is Hawk fans or Ram fans coming in here, throwing some donos around, we had a ton of donos brought in here by Jimmy from the Ram fam in here. Always welcome Ram fans into the house. All we ask is, of course, just respect. We'll be respectful from my end to you, you to us. This way, the conversation can flow and the discussion can flow and the debate can flow, and it doesn't have to get weird. It doesn't have to get awkward, right? And I really appreciate you guys do tend to bring that, Ram fans. I know we've had some fun today with you guys on this, but you guys do tend to be in that way, and it is much appreciated when you come in here, because it just makes the show, I think, that much better. You guys are amazing, though. Really, really appreciate you for another fun time here on Chopping Up with you. The Hawks have another edge rusher. Their roster is set. Yet, the team still has about $28 million of cap space, almost zero amount of dead money. They can still do whatever the hell they want. They still don't have to be done. They still got all the flexibility to make a variety of different moves yet. So let's see what they do. Let's see what John does now to potentially try to take this thing a little bit more over the top. But this team is raring to go. There is nothing that they are missing now to be able to go back into next season and potentially repeat as Super Bowl champions. We're a couple months away here from the start of training camp. The team is slowly and surely topping everything off, getting everything right, getting the stage set up appropriately. It's about the 120 men you got on the roster in full, as they like to say. They've got that in position now, and we're raring to go. I shouldn't have to remind you. I shouldn't have to let you know that your team might be ready to go back-to-back and cement themselves as an all-time type team in the NFL. But I'm going to do so anyway. Don't you dare ever forget. Go Hawks.